Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea. It is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, my international friends, joining me as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies, movie news, a little bit of television, and all sorts of good stuff. And, of course, joining us today on this delightful Friday, congratulations on making it through to the end of another week, guys, is one Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing, sir?
John, I am, fabuloso pretty much describes the way I'm feeling right now.
Fabuloso.
Yeah.
I like it. Got any good big plans ahead of yourself for the weekend?
Well, I'm a manager in the Schmodown, and tomorrow is the draft.
True.
Tomorrow is the draft.
That's right. The draft is tomorrow.
So the burning droogs are plotting and scheming.
Well, listen, guys, speaking of plotting and scheming, we have plotted and schemed a whole bunch of really, really good stuff to talk to you guys about here today. We're, of course, going to talk about Doctor Strange just lost its director, guys. We're going to talk about that in just a little bit. Of course, Birds of Prey has dropped a new trailer, all sorts of good stuff. But before we get into those main topics, got a couple things to mention here. Now, guys, you know that every day on the John Campea Show, we take the second half of the show to take your live questions. And there's two different ways for you guys to send in live questions. You can use the tip link at the top of the description of this video. That's the best way to do it. Or you can use Super Chat. But today, I'm asking you guys to do something a little bit different. And I put this out on my Twitter last night. Totally honor system here, guys. Totally honor system. But here is what I'd like you guys to do today. You guys know that there's some really awful crap going on in Australia right now with the fires and all that kind of stuff that's affecting a hell of a lot of people, wildlife, the environment, all that kind of stuff. They could really use not just our awareness, but they could use our help. So here's what I'm asking today. I'm asking today that if you do decide you want to send in a question today, awesome, thank you very much. But I'm asking for honor system here. Only send in a question today, a tip or super chat, if you then agree to go over to www.redcross.org.au. So that's redcross.org.au. So if you want to submit a question here today in the live section, I'm asking that whatever you tip or donate whatever to the show, I ask that you go over to that website and equal that. And if you can only do one, don't send in a question today. Just go over to redcross.org.au and put whatever you were going to send in as a super chat or a tip for the show today. I would rather you send it there. So either match it with Red Cross or just send it to Red Cross. One way or the other. Honor system, guys. Honor system today. Because, hey, we get to talk about movies here, but there's real world stuff going on. And I think there's a lot of film fans in Australia who could really use a little bit of support right now. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's get on to some off the tops here before we get to our main topics here today, Rob. And our first off the top is this. They announced a little while ago something that caused a lot of people to go, wait a minute, what? They announced that Hasbro, in cooperation with the studios, is making not another G.I. Joe film, but they are making a Snake Eyes film. A Woohoo! Snake Eyes standalone movie. And everybody started buzzing when they announced that Henry Golding, the guy from Crazy Rich Asians, who's becoming like one of the hottest guys in Hollywood right now. Like he's on the top of everybody's list right now. Even that Last Christmas movie that looked like a dumpster fire to me, a lot of people are saying he was really good in it. So he is, of course, playing Snake Eyes at this point. Well, the news has come out. It's not just an announced movie now. It's begun shooting. The tangibilization, Rob, they've begun shooting this film. And I'll tell you what, the tangibilization, it's real now. It's real, and that's a good thing. And you know what? I'm going to admit something right now. At first, when they announced that they were doing a Snake Eyes film, and Snake Eyes is one of everybody's favorite characters. Snake Eyes is such a cool character. Of course, used to be played by Ray Park, not anymore. But when they first announced it, I was like, oh, that's cool. But then the more I thought about it, I started to not love the idea. It's like everybody loves G.I. Joe, and Snake Eyes is a big part of that. And I started to think, maybe this isn't such a great idea. Maybe just doing Snake Eyes on his own, like taking out all the other great characters and all that kind of stuff. Maybe this isn't exactly the way to go with this. And I started to feel a little bit skeptical about it. But then this news came out yesterday, and so it made me pay attention to it again. I'm like, okay, and I started thinking about it some more. And I started realizing, you know what? Look at what Transformers did with Bumblebee. right? Instead of trying to have 45 different characters, they focused more on one. They made it a more personal story with great action and fantastic stuff, and they delivered a fantastic movie with Bumblebee. And I started to rethink it again, Rob, about Snake Eyes. It's like, well, you know what? Maybe this is really to its benefit. Focusing on this one character, really just focus on that character's story amidst great action and great fun. And maybe this could really work out. So, Rob, I've gone from excited to a little bit skeptical to back to being excited again. How are you feeling about the Snake Eyes now that they've announced that they've actually started shooting this thing?
Well, I'm a big G.I. Joes back in the 70s when they were 12 inches and they had gone from G.I. Joe to the Adventure Team. I've loved the G.I. Joe franchise. Now, I was a little too old to get into the 3 3/4 inch figures from the early 80s. I mean, I wanted that aircraft carrier so damn bad, but I don't think I could convince my mom I could have such a large toy. I mean, they made an F-14 Tomcat. I love G.I. Joe. But I think this is pretty cool. I think it's an interesting way to go. I think, Hasbro has wanted to make they were trying to do a universe bringing all their properties together like in the same movie. Things like Mask along with G.I. Joe, along with the Transformers,
Mask,
which I think is a little much. But I think they're doing something really smart. I mean, they're taking a page. Let's go back to the MCU. Let's make movies about our individual characters. We make those movies good, then we team them up. Can you imagine if they're working up to they're going to do individual characters and then give us the G.I. Joe team movie?
So in 2021, we'll get Roadblock and
could be. On. I mean, it depends. Maybe they're going to touch on these characters. I don't know. I think it's really exciting. Obviously, Henry Golding, we're having a Henry Golding moment here.
Yeah.
People love him ever since Crazy Rich Asians. And, I like it when an actor who makes a big splash parlays that into interesting. I mean, he does Last Christmas, which is one direction. Then you're going into a franchise property.
And don't forget his role in A Simple Favor. He was so good in A Simple Favor.
He was good in that, and he's in Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman.
That's right. Yeah, Gentleman.
And I think he's showing diversity. I don't mean because he's an Asian actor. I mean he's showing diversity in the roles he chooses, which I think is smart for any actor or actress to do that. And I think Scarlett Johansson has done that. And I think Golding is playing it. He has a really good hand, and he's playing it well, to make a poker analogy.
I love it when you make poker analogies. Question is, guys, how do you feel about this? Like, maybe you're like, Snake Eyes film for a G.I. Joe franchise that hasn't done so hot. Are you excited about it? Do you think going with the single character focus is a good idea? How are you feeling about it now that they're actually shooting this movie? Jump down into the comment section below and let me know what you guys think. All right. With that down, let's talk about one more thing off the top here, Rob, and that's this. Now, there's been a lot of drama going on with Star Trek. Not all of it bad. Actually, some of it really, really interesting. Like everything from the TV stuff that's going on right now. We got Picard on the way, which a lot of people are excited about. Then there was the whole thing about Quentin Tarantino. Is he going to direct one? And that's kind of disappeared. Who knows if that's going to ever happen or not. But then a little while ago, they announced that Legion showrunner, Noah Hawley, was going to be directing one. And he just got into the news again here talking about the Star Trek film that he wants to do. And he's saying as soon as he's done with what's the show he's working on right now? Is it Fargo?
Fargo. The trailer just dropped for the new season, and oh my God, does it look good.
A lot of people are happy about it, but he's now saying as soon as he's done with that season, he's moving right into Star Trek. And he was basically making some suggestions here, Rob, that his Star Trek is really going to go more back to like some of the original feel of the original Star Trek series. Not so much an action series, although there was some action in the original series, but it was really more focused on more philosophical things, societal things, things like that, dilemmas. But what did he say? Creative problem solving, I think is one of the phrases he used in talking about going down. Now, it should be noted, he hasn't even started writing one letter of the script. He's just been coming up with this concept. He's been busy on other things. Then he's going to go into this. Rob, in the era of the big blockbuster, do you think Noah Hawley going back to more of the roots, the DNA of the original Star Trek series is a good move for Star Trek at this point? How do you feel about it?
Well, somebody should, because we haven't seen it in the last 10 years. No, look, I'm a huge fan of Noah Hawley as a creator. I think Fargo has been excellent. Judging from the trailer that dropped yesterday, Chris Rock is one of the headliners of the new season of Fargo, which looks phenomenal. I loved Legion. I think Noah Hawley is an incredible creative and a terrific showrunner. And hearing him say this is really interesting. Whether it's going to happen now with Viacom and CBS together as one entity, I honestly think Star Trek is in flux right now. I mean, obviously, yes, we've got Picard coming, we've got Discovery coming, but between those two shows, they've the most expensive television ever made. And Star Trek, the thing about Star Trek was it's the exact opposite. It was expensive when they originally made it, but the budgets were always kept under control. Rick Berman, who produced 25 seasons of Star Trek over 18 years, never went over budget, never had a problem keeping the show under control. And I think Star Trek has always been about, like you said, there's a taste of action, but it is really philosophical, and it is really about creative problem solving, and it is about optimism. And I like hearing him say this. I'd be curious to see what he as a creator could do, although I'm dubious it's ever going to happen, because I think now that Star Trek is back together, there's no Paramount on one side and CBS on the other. It's now one entity again, that we're going to be seeing, I think, a new direction in Star Trek. And I don't know. I think Noah Hawley is the last vestiges of the people that have controlled Star Trek for the last 10 years. So we'll see. I would be curious and certainly excited about him as a creative taking over on Star Trek. But again, I don't know if it's going to happen. Like you said, he hasn't started writing the script yet. It certainly hasn't been greenlit. So we'll see where it goes.
All right. Question here, guys, for you is, what do you feel about these comments? Maybe you're somebody who loves the new blockbuster aspect of Star Trek that they've done. Maybe you're somebody who's really been yearning for them to get back to those original roots of Star Trek. What do you think about Noah Hawley's things? I personally think he's going to come down somewhere in the middle. But what do you think they should do? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with all that down out of the way, let's move on now to our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here in the John Campea Show? Well, you see, it's really rather simple. You guys come up with our main topics by simply going over anytime 24/7 to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, fill out the form with your topic or question, hit submit, and then maybe, just maybe, you may see your topic or question featured here as the main topic on The John Campea Show. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Lawrence Gruten, who writes, "Hey, John and crew. I know you've been skeptical about the new Birds of Prey movie. That's a little bit of an understatement. So I was wondering if you saw the new trailer and what you thought about it. I thought it was much better than the last one, and I'm actually pretty excited about it now. What did you think?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, for those of you who might have missed it, a brand new trailer for Birds of Prey. It actually dropped while I was doing the show yesterday. I anxiously went and watched it after I was done with my show yesterday. And my feelings on it remain meh. I mean, look, I don't think the trailer was bad. Let's be clear about that. I don't think the trailer was bad. I just didn't personally see a lot in there to be particularly excited about. I mean, one of the things that I think they did that was really good that they did in the trailer was really more set up Harley and where we're at with Harley and where she's at as we're starting with the movie. She extrapolates a little bit more on the whole no longer being with Mr. J. All that kind of stuff was interesting. You get a little bit more sense of the violence and stuff like that, which was good. It wasn't bad. But Rob, you know that I've been kind of skeptical about this film, and which is really kind of odd because I'm very enthusiastic about most DC films, but this is the one that I haven't really been able to get on board with. And I was wanting this next trailer. I wanted this next trailer, Rob, to be one that was really going to reach out off the screen, grab me by the collar and say, pay attention to me. You know what I mean? That's what I wanted the new trailer to do, because I want to be excited about this movie. I want to get on board. Like I'm excited for Wonder Woman 84 and I'm excited for Black Adam and I'm excited for the next Shazam. I want to be that kind of excited for Birds of Prey, but I just can't get there. And I got to tell you, personally, I don't think this trailer did anything to move the needle. Again, it wasn't bad. It's not like I watched the trailer and went, well, now I'm even less interested in the movie. Not at all. It's just that it didn't really do anything for me on any level. Rob, you had a chance to check out this trailer for Birds of Prey. Did you think it's an improvement? Has it made you more interested in the film? How do you think it did?
Well, I'm kind of with you. I watched this and I'm like, okay, it was fun. You know, I'm watching scenes that are fun, but I still don't have a sense of what is this movie really about. You know, I got exactly what I expected from it. I got to see a little bit more of Harley Quinn. I got to see a little bit more understanding of okay, yes, it's tied to the Joker. Yes, it's tied to Suicide Squad. Yes, that's all very interesting. We didn't get to see much of her compatriots, the rest of the Birds of Prey. We don't get much of a sense of who they are. And I'm just wondering, again, why am I supposed to go see this movie? What is the thing that I need to get from a trailer is a sense of the overarching story that is going to be told within this film. And this was a lot of shtick and a lot of Harley Quinn. If you love Harley Quinn, I'm like, great, awesome. But that's not enough for me to go out and see a film like this. I mean, I'm getting to the point where there's so much, when you come off of a show like The Boys, which has so much to say about the superhero genre, whether it's coming at it head on or obliquely referencing it. I mean, The Boys kind of treads in the same swimming pool as Harley Quinn in a way, I think. And I'm just like, I wanted to be just as compelled to see this Harley Quinn movie as I am to see season 2 of The Boys. And I just wasn't feeling it. Margot Robbie was fun. I liked the one line where she's talking about very seriously about what therapy is supposed to do or whatever. That was funny. But the rest of it was just like, it was like a one-note joke to me. And I wanted more from the trailer. I know it's just a trailer, but I want to be convinced to go see this movie because the story that I'm going to be told is worth my time. And I don't know if it is yet.
I'll tell you what, though, a lot of people have been telling me, as a little side note to Harley Quinn, and first of all, look, we all know this is a Harley Quinn movie. I mean, they can call it Birds of Prey all they want. We know that this is a Harley Quinn movie, and I'll be shocked if we go into it and find it's really not, that it really is an ensemble film, but until they convince me otherwise, this is clearly a Harley Quinn movie. By the way, a bunch of people have been telling me online, Rob, that I should really check out, because I'm not a big fan of the DC or Marvel animated stuff for the most part.
Right.
There's a few exceptions, for the most part, not. So I had no interest in this new Harley Quinn show that's on the DC Universe streaming service. Had no interest in it. I didn't think the trailers looked good, whatever. I finally had so many people telling me to watch it.
I know, me too.
Yesterday at lunch, as I was eating lunch, I decided to pop up the first episode. It's fucking good. It's funny. I got to tell you, I was really I'm impressed by it. So to all of you who have been telling me to watch this Harley Quinn animated thing, I'm only one episode in, but I got to tell you, man, I really did enjoy it. I had a good time with it. So anyway, listen, question here is how are you feeling about the whole Birds of Prey and the Fabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn, the movie, now that the second trailer has dropped? Did you think the trailer was an improvement, like the person who sent in the question was saying? Is it kind of the same? Are you excited? Are you not excited? How are you feeling about this movie right now? Jump on down to the comment section below and let me know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to our second main topic today. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by John Arden, who writes, Bad Boys 3 comes out next week, and there hasn't been a new trailer in months. Does this mean that the movie is really bad, and that's why Sony hasn't released a new trailer? Or is Sony relying on Will Smith's star power to bring people to the movie? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And the first thing I want to point out is this. Trailers are absolutely no reflection on whether or not the studio thinks their movie is good or bad. As a matter of fact, you could make the opposite argument. You could make the argument that the worse the movie, the more effort the studios are going to put into making their trailers, because they want everybody to get out that first opening weekend, because once word of mouth gets out about this film, no one's going to come. So they're going to want to make as much money as they possibly can on that first opening weekend. So them putting out one trailer and that not another trailer for a long time, honestly, says nothing to the confidence or lack of confidence that a studio has in a film. Again, like I said, if anything, the opposite could possibly be true. So I wouldn't worry about that. I am more usually concerned by the notion of embargo dates. And if I'm not mistaken, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, actually, I could probably go over it and check this right now. Hold on a second. Let me look up Bad Boys 3 Rotten Tomatoes. But the last I checked, they still hadn't released, and that's fine. That's fine. They don't need to have one released right now. We're still a little ways off. So as of right now, still not. See, that's always the bigger concern to me. The bigger concern to me is if we get within 48 hours of the movie opening and the studio has not lifted the review embargo. That's usually the bigger flag to me, not whether or not there's been a new trailer. And by the way, yesterday, Rob, I actually saw a bunch of new TV spots drop for this movie. I saw a whole bunch of marketing yesterday. So it's just really kind of ironic that this question came in now. I saw a whole bunch of new marketing for it. So look, I don't know if this movie's going to be good or not. I have no idea if this is going to be a great movie, a piece of junk movie. I just have no idea at this point. But I wouldn't be too concerned about, how many trailers they put out, because how many trailers come out is not an indicator about whether the studio believes in it or not at this point. Anyway, Rob, you heard the question. You see this movie coming down the pike. How would you respond to that?
Well, again, the trailers to this movie haven't made me overjoyed. And I like the first Bad Boys a lot. The second Bad Boys is such a fun example of total excess that you can't not be like, well, I admire Michael Bay's audacity, because anything he could do, he cranked up to 11 in that movie. But in this time, I don't know. I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling there was nothing in it that intellectually makes, and I know it's funny to say that. Why do I need to run out to see this movie? What is the story? Give me a sense of the tale that they're telling. And it's Martin Lawrence seems to be Murtaugh from Lethal Weapon. I'm too old for this shit, and Will Smith is still out there doing what he was doing 25 years ago, and I'm just like, okay, maybe it's good. And now there's new young whippersnappers that are probably going to turn out to be evil cops, like in Clint Eastwood's movie, the Dirty Harry movie. Was it Magnum Force, the second Dirty Harry film, when the cops were the villains? I mean, I don't know. Okay. It just seems like too little, too late. But I really like Will Smith.
Yeah, me too.
And I every time I see anything that he does, I want him to succeed. So I hope Bad Boys is good, because I love me some cop thrillers. Let me tell you, a good cop movie. Some of my favorite movies. I mean, Beverly Hills Cop is coming out next week in 4K and a brand new, it's a new transfer, and the transfer has been terrible on Blu-ray. I love Beverly Hills Cop. I love To Live and Die in L.A. I love my 80s cop movies, another 48 Hours. I want to love this movie, John. I really do. And I want to see it, but I'm not excited about it. I hate walking into movies thinking, I'll go see it, but I want to be excited.
Yeah, so look, I know there are a lot of people who are excited about this movie, and maybe you guys are some of those. What do you guys think about this? Do you think, have you noticed a lack of marketing? Did you notice, like me yesterday, I saw a big ramp up in the marketing? Do you think that says anything about whether the movie will be good or bad? Do you think the movie's going to be good or bad? How are you feeling about it right now? Jump on down in the comment section and let me know your thoughts. All right, with that down, let's move on to our third main topic today. And our third main topic today gets sent in to us from David H., who writes, "Hey, John, did you see the new poster for the upcoming finale of Crisis?" This is, of course, the CW Arrowverse crossover, Crisis on Infinite Earths. Apparently, Arrow is now Spectre. Isn't he a little too powerful for this? Do you think that Spectre is overkill to fight Anti-Monitor? Thanks. All right. So, as most of you guys know, first of all, I get excited every year for the annual Arrowverse crossover. I am an unapologetic fan of the CW Arrowverse. I know they're cheesy, whatever, but there's part of that I don't love everything about it. Don't get me wrong. But I've always enjoyed the CW Arrowverse crossover stuff, some things more than others. I have not really been into this Crisis on Infinite Earths so far. So far, to me, it's just been a lot of very weak and shallow fan service stuff that hasn't really had any payoff or delivery. But we still do have a couple of episodes to go. So one interesting thing that's been going on is, of course, Oliver. And in the new poster, we see Oliver there in the middle. Of course, we left off with him, you know, kind of in the purgatory and being told, you have a greater purpose and destiny. Okay. So which kind of rendered the whole trip to purgatory completely useless anyway. And we see Oliver there, as it appears, Rob, as the new Spectre. Asking, isn't Spectre a little too powerful for a crossover like this and for an event like this? Isn't he too much even for somebody like Anti-Monitor? It's a fair question. On the one hand, I got to say, it's nice to see Oliver at the center of this again, because Oliver, he is the centerpiece of the entire Arrowverse. I mean, it's called the Arrowverse. He is the centerpiece of all this, so it's nice to see him back there in the center of it again, and I like that he didn't just become a footnote in this overall crossover. That's great. In the question of, isn't Spectre a little bit too powerful for this, keep this in mind. The comics are not the movies or the TV shows. Just because something is portrayed a certain way in a comic book does not necessarily mean they have to be portrayed that exact same way and to that exact same level in a TV show or in a movie. They can take a lot of liberties there and decide how they want this character to fit best here. I mean, just about every character in the Arrowverse is kind of a testament to that. But anyway, Rob, you hear the question being asked. So I want to ask you, what do you think about them, you know, kind of bringing in a Spectre character? And as the person who asked the question is asking, is this a little bit of overkill for something like this? How would you respond?
Well, yes. I mean, the Spectre as portrayed in the DC universe has almost limitless power. I actually really like the idea that Oliver Queen is the Spectre. I mean, if you're going to do something goofy, if you're going to kill him, it's a way to keep him around, and you can always bring him back if you have to. But I think you're right. I mean, I think one of the great things about whether it's the CW Arrowverse, whether it's the MCU, whether it's the DC, EU, these characters have to be tailored to fit the medium in which they appear. And I would be curious to see what they do with the Spectre. And I like the fact that a character that we know, a main character, has sort of evolved and transitioned to another life. And I like the idea. And yes, I don't think it's going to be exactly like the comics, because then it's going to be you're completely into a whole new realm of powers and what you're going to be able to see. I mean, I already think that because it's TV, you can never see Superman unleash the way he can unleash in, say, Man of Steel. And have those kinds of battles. Although I have to say that the two Superman beating on each other already was kind of fun to watch. But yeah, I think that we're going to see the version of the Spectre that is right for the CW universe. So I'm not worried about it. I'm actually curious to see how they do it.
So the question here then becomes, guys, how do you feel about it? Do you like this move that they're going in with the final couple of episodes? Have you been enjoying the Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover so far? What are you guys thinking? Jump down in the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 4. And our fourth main topic today gets submitted to us by Thomas, who writes, "Hi, everyone. It's been announced that the Oscar ceremony will go without a host for the second year in a row. I'm fine with this, as last year's ceremony was one of my favorites. What do you think of this news?" All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, as we all remember, last year was a total cluster F last year with everything that went on prior to the Oscars. They ended up on the decision not to have a host. I didn't like the decision. I didn't like the decision last year to not have a host. But that being said, they did the show, and the show was actually pretty good. The show was actually pretty good, and it seemed to work okay without a host. Now, I still prefer a host, because I think if you got a good host, it can, like, you got a Billy Crystal hosting or whatever, or something like that. When you have a good host hosting something, the way Tina Fey and Amy Poehler used to host the Golden Globes, the way Ricky Gervais just hosted the Golden Globes. I mean, when you have a good host or team of hosts, one of these shows can really sing. When you don't have the right hosts, however, it can really go in the tank. And then when you have no host, it kind of evens itself out a little bit, and it can go perfectly fine. Rob, I got to tell you, I'm not surprised that they decided to go without a host again this year. Now, I believe we are going to get back to having a host every year for the Oscars. But I feel like the Academy looked at it and said, you know what? We're still in the midst of whoever we announce right now to be a host, everybody's going to start digging through every tweet they ever sent out since they were 16 years old, and people are going to look to tear them down and destroy them, and we're going to have a problem getting the hosts we want because individuals won't want to be subject to that sort of scrutiny and blah, 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 blah. So I'm not surprised, actually, that they decide, let's give it another year. As a matter of fact, I won't be surprised if they even go another year. I won't be surprised if we don't have an Oscar host next year as well. I do think they will get back to it, but I feel like they want to take a couple of years, so I am not surprised at all. And you know what? I'm not worried about it. Because even though, like I said, I prefer a good host for the Oscars, the fact of the matter is the show flowed just fine without it last year, so I have no problem with them doing it this year, and I'm not surprised at all. Rob, two different questions here. Are you surprised they're going without a host this year? And do you like or not like the idea of them going without a host?
Well, on one hand, like you, I mean, I like Oscar hosts. I like, especially with the Academy channel on YouTube, you can go and look at all the old hosts and the bits of the days of yore. And there's something, a good host, like the days of Bob Hope, brought an elegance to it. And I've always liked that. But in this day and age, unfortunately, it's too much of the aggravation. Why put yourself up? You want to be celebrating the movies and the art form, and in the world we live in, everybody's going to go after you, which seems sort of strange. So they really don't have a choice. I mean, it's our culture today that has forced them into this, which I think is a shame. But that said, last year's show was good, and in not having one host, they'll bring other people out to sort of MC various sections of the show. You still get that star-studded feel. And maybe we get to see it's a different kind of a format, but I think it works. They made it work last year. And if the show is on par with what we got last year, we'll get a good award show. And I think that's really ultimately, at the end of the day, what's most important. But I don't think that capitulating to the world, the era in which we live in, is necessarily good for any of us. But that said, it's better that they don't have a cloud hanging over the Academy Awards going into it. So,
yeah, they don't want that. I think either next year or 2 years from now, like I said, I think we're going to have this little break where they're not having a host. And then their first year, whether it's next year or the year after, that they do bring in a host again, I think they're going to go with a very safe choice. Like an Ellen. Or because they've had Ellen host a couple times. It was, blah, blah. Listen, I love Ellen DeGeneres. I do. I'm not a big fan of her as an Oscar host. While I think she's absolutely hilarious and fantastic, I haven't been a big fan of her hosting the Oscars, but she went over very well with an awful lot of people. Somebody like that. Somebody like, hey, listen, last time things went off the rails, and I'm going to sneeze. Pardon me. Last time things went off the rails with the Oscars when they had Anne Hathaway and James Franco host, which is, oh my God, who will ever forget that? But the last time it went off the rails, the very following year, this is what the Oscar does. They fell back to what's safe for 1 year, and they went to Billy Crystal. So I don't know if they go out and get Billy Crystal back. I don't know if they do something really safe like a George Clooney hosting. I don't know if but I do think when they bring back a host, their first pick will be somebody that is known, that is safe, to ease back into it, and then maybe go a little bit more radical later. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Question is, guys, what do you think about the fact that the Oscars are going to go hostless again this year? Maybe like last year was one of your favorite Oscars and you love this news. Maybe you're surprised by it. Maybe you're not. How do you feel about it right now? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to our fifth and final main topic today. And our fifth and final main topic today gets sent in to us by Greg Martin, who writes, is it possible, just possible, is it the worst news in the multiverse could possibly get? It is the worst news. Sorry, I'm looking at two different scripts here that have different words. It is the worst news the multiverse could possibly get. Scott Derrickson has just let people know that he is no longer directing Doctor Strange 2 over the dreaded creative differences. I'm gutted. I love that first film so much, and a lot of it was his style and art. How do you feel about him leaving the movie? All right, thanks a lot for writing that in, Greg. And to Greg's point, what he is talking about is that, yeah, Scott Derrickson, who did such an incredible job with that first Doctor Strange movie, a movie that probably 7 or 8 years ago you'd say, well, you can't do a Doctor Strange movie. I mean, that's not going to work. And they did. And it was great. And it was fun. And all that sort of stuff. So he was coming back to direct the second. Everybody got excited when they announced that he was coming back to direct the second one. And then they dropped it yesterday, Rob. Scott got on his social media and wrote, Marvel and I have mutually agreed to part ways on Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness due, and there it is, to creative differences. I am thankful for our collaboration and will remain on as executive producer, which is, of course, doesn't actually mean he's going to do anything moving forward. It's just that he's going to get this credit for all the work that he's already done in it. Rob, I got to ask you first, because I know you were a big fan of that first Doctor Strange movie.
Oh, I was.
How are you feeling about the news that he's stepping down and he's out of the picture at this point over creative differences?
Well, look, it's always unfortunate when this happens, and it's not easy for anyone, especially for someone who's already made a successful film for the studio within the MCU. Doctor Strange is a beloved film. Benedict Cumberbatch was a great addition, and as we saw in Infinity War and Endgame, a very important addition to the MCU. And I thought that there was a lot of great vision and a lot of creativity in that first movie. So it's unfortunate. Now, everyone wants to know why. Like, is there some kind of a scandal? I honestly believe in this case, we've heard that WandaVision might seeg right into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. I think probably there really was, in this case, actual creative differences where Derrickson probably wanted to go lean more heavily into the horror elements of this. I mean, it is called the Multiverse of Madness. It's not called the Multiverse of, well, I'm a little angry, you know. So I think that he probably had big plans, and those plans probably wasn't exactly the kind of direction that, I mean, it's with Disney Plus, these shows debuting on Disney Plus, there's only so far you can push this stuff now. And I think that maybe, and Scott Derrickson came out of the horror realm, and he probably wanted to do things that might not have been acceptable, at least acceptable in terms of the plans, the overarching plans of Kevin Feige and the MCU. So rather than be banging his head against a wall, he probably came to the realization that, you know, it's time for me to move on.
I first of all, I'm really disappointed by this news. I'm really disappointed by it because I thought when they first announced that he was going to be the director of the first Doctor Strange, I loved it because you look at his previous films to come into something like Doctor Strange. I thought he was a great fit for it. And I was really stoked about what he could bring to the table for that. But there's another reason that makes me kind of fascinated by this news. And that's this. Whenever we hear, one of the big things that we as fans like to scream is, we don't want studio interference. We don't want studio interference is one of the things that a lot of us as film fans will constantly be shouting and screaming and everything. But I've always kind of said, guys, like, I don't hear anybody screaming and crying and whining and complaining about all the studio interference that Marvel has over their films. Because if you don't think Kevin Feige isn't pulling the strings on every one of those movies, you're a special kind of naive. I mean, he gives each one of his directors a certain amount of creative freedom to do some things, but he is absolutely injecting and telling them what can and cannot happen. And I'm very curious to see in this situation, Rob, if it got to the point where a director who did such a good job on the first movie is now departing the second one long after they announced him and long after they had already started, working on the pre-production of the film and everything, that he's splitting out the door over creative differences. I'm going to be very curious to see if people give Marvel a hard time over the studio interferencing. Now, as for me personally, I think a studio should be involved. I mean, it's their movie. They're the ones.
Right.
Like, this is what I always say. You can hire an interior decorator for your house, and you want them to bring their expertise and their vision to your house. But they also got to do it in such a way that it makes the house you want and that you want to live in. So yes, you give them freedom, but they have to follow your direction because it's your house. I kind of always seen that the same way that the studios and the filmmakers of their movies. We want to give the filmmakers the freedom to do what they want to do, but at the same time, it's our house. It's our film. We're the ones paying for it. We're the ones who are going to lose money on this. We're the ones who are this, blah, blah, blah. So I always believe there should be a little bit of interference. There should be a little bit of involvement from the studio to a degree. But I am very curious, Rob, to see if people are going to make this a big deal and say, the studio's interfering, or... And this could be a fair thing to say, or does studio interference, is that a concept that doesn't apply to Marvel because of the special and kind of unique setup and circumstances that Marvel is right now? I'm so curious about it, Rob, that I decided to make that the topic of today's question of the day, everybody. And the question of the day, I put this up just before the show started on my Twitter. I put up a poll asking you guys this simple question. The question of the day, with Scott Derrickson leaving Doctor Strange 2 over creative differences, is this a case of studio interference in a filmmaker's vision, or, and to be fair, does that not necessarily apply to Marvel because Marvel's such a unique situation? That's what I asked you guys. Put it up just before the show. Almost 2,000 of you guys have voted already. And right now, I'm surprised to see about 71.8% of you are saying, no, you interpret this as studio interference, which is, I'm surprised by this. I really thought that number would be lower. And 28.2% of you guys right now are saying you think because of the uniqueness of the situation with Marvel, that's not really a principle that applies here. So that's how it's breaking down right now. 71.8 are saying it is studio interference. 28.2 are saying it doesn't really apply. So that leaves the question for you guys. Do you guys think that this is studio interference, or do you think that it's not really applicable? And actually, Rob, let me put that question to you as well. How do you see it? Do you think this is something people could fairly criticize as studio interference? Or do you think because of the extremely unique nature of Marvel that studio interference really isn't a principle that comes into play?
I think you're right about that. I don't think you could call it studio interference because the studio has, look, we've got 23 movies to see what they wanted to do. Now, I think there's probably a new pressure that never existed before, which is, where do we go from here? Like the song from Once More with Feeling and Buffy. Where do you go from here? Now that you've made all the money in the world, now that your films are incredibly successful, you're moving into a new realm. You're on Disney Plus. You've got to make that work now with the movies that have to then work back with the Disney Plus shows. So there's a new set of circumstances, and all of the movies moving forward, they're all going to be expected to make $1 billion now, whether that's rightfully or wrongfully, but that's what they're expecting. So I think there's creative pressures and there's financial pressures now that are a direct result of the success of Marvel, and they don't want to mess with that. And so those extra added pressures are going to hamstring any kind of, I think, real out-of-the-box creativity that, of course, a filmmaker wants to bring. You don't want to repeat yourself. You don't want to play it safe. I mean, they already titled the movie Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. That's pretty insane to me. And I'm like, okay, if you're gonna call your movie that, I expect to see a multiverse of madness, especially after the end of Doctor Strange with the scene with Dormammu, which I thought was it was a lot of fun and ballsy and a great way to end the movie. You got to go a lot more mad than that. That's what you're saying you're going to do. So I think that there's probably, inevitably, I don't think this is, by the way, going to be the first time this happens. I think everybody wants to do these movies, but I think success, John, breeds a lot of craziness and an extra added layer that you have to deal with. That's just the nature of the beast. So we'll see where it goes. It's not unexpected to me, though.
And of course, this isn't the first time this has happened in the MCU as well. Most notably, of course, was the whole Edgar Wright departure. That was a very unique situation because it was like 5 or 6 years between when they announced it was going to do it and then they were actually executing it. And apparently Edgar is still on great terms with Marvel and all that kind of stuff. So it's not like it's the first time. Question is, guys, how are you feeling about Scott Derrickson departing the upcoming Doctor Strange sequel? Are you kind of bummed out about it like some of us are? Do you maybe see it as not a big deal? Do you see it as studio interference? Do you not? How are you feeling about it in general? Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With all that down and out of the way, we're now going to move on and take the live questions that you guys have been sending in. And just so you know, we're going to start our live questions with the leftover questions from yesterday's show because of some production stuff that came up last night. I didn't have a chance to do the companion video. So we're going to start off the live questions with the leftovers from yesterday and then roll right into the new live questions that have come in today. But before we get to all that stuff, guys, if you will indulge us and hang tight, this is the part of the show where Rob and I take a quick 4-minute break, rest the vocal cords, stretch the legs, refill the drinks, all that kind of stuff. So hang tight with us, guys. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. All right, everybody, and we are back. Thank you so much for your patience and indulgence as we took a little bit of a break there to get our stuff all gathered together. All right, with all the other stuff down out of the way, let's jump in and start taking your live questions. You guys have been firing them in, so let's get into it. And don't forget, guys, if you do send in a live question today, I ask that you use the honor system. Go over to redcross.org.au and match whatever you sent in for your question. Match that in a donation to the Red Cross. And if you can't do both, I ask that you just go and donate to the Red Cross today instead of here to the show. Okay, with that down, let's start getting caught up on some of the questions here. And we're going to start things off with John McKinney writes, damn shame Esmeralda, Demi Moore, and John McClane, Bruce Willis split up. Such a great couple. That was one of the first Hollywood couples breaking up that I was sad about. I'm like, no, not them. They're so great. And then she ended up with what's his name for a bit?
Ashton Kutcher.
Ashton Kutcher. So I mean, hey, it is. But that was the first one that I remember that was really kind of sucky. All right, Joe Hill writes, Murray Reich isn't alone. I sent in my first $50 tip Saturday afternoon. All excited for you to get it on Monday's show. It never showed up. Kind of bummed and out $15. LOL. Enjoyed the interview today, by the way. And listen, by the way, no, your question did get hit up. And I've got a graphic for it over here that we're going to be using to do your own standalone video for it, because whenever somebody sends in a tip or whatever, $50 or more, which is incredible to support the channel, I like to honor that by also answering it in its own standalone video. So we even got the graphic for it all set. So don't keep your eyes open for it, Joe. It's coming. All right. John McKinney writes, as much as I hate Jar Jar, but Hayden Christensen was the worst thing to come out of the prequels. He was just so insufferable. But you got to understand, and I think a lot of people forget this, Rob, when talking about that. George Lucas, he doesn't even like working. I'm not putting words in his mouth. This is out of his own mouth. He doesn't even like working with actors. He's like, whatever, just have them do something and we'll fix it in post. Like even guys like Ewan McGregor struggled at times with that. I mean, they're just actors for the first time, like no actor. When The Phantom Menace came out, there was no actor who was really experienced at working green screen. And a lot of it was green screen with very little direction from George. And it's just hear the lines, and everything else was about the visual effects of it and doing it in post and fixing it in post and blah, blah. So, I really don't blame. Like, was some of the performance of Anakin Skywalker in those movies bad? Sure. But honestly, I don't put the blame of it, at least not the majority of the blame on it, on Hayden Christensen. I think he takes a little bit of a bad rap for that. Rob, how do you see it?
I agree with you. I mean, I think that obviously the performances, even Sam Jackson was stilted in the prequels. And I think that, obviously it was a technological, people forget that Phantom Menace was a very audacious attempt to create virtual environments and film with minimal sets. I mean, it was something that really hadn't been done before to that extent. And that's a lot of what you saw was a testing ground for a lot of new technology and new techniques. And I think the human element was sort of lost. And it's interesting because it's a huge compare and contrast to the original trilogy, where it's funny, people always mention about how the original Star Wars didn't have the greatest acting in the world, but I thought it had the perfect acting for what it was. I know I was a kid, but I believed in those characters. I think about scenes where Harrison Ford just tosses off, I don't know, do you think a princess and a guy like me? No. There was nothing like that in the prequels. There was nothing natural and fun because everything had to be so precise. People had to hit their marks. They had to be right in a certain place. It was very technical, and it sort of bled out that human element. Yeah,
and sand. And sand is coarse.
And sand.
And it gets everywhere. I don't know if you knew that. It gets everywhere. All right, get off my lawn. Calistio writes, Noah Baumbach, Todd Phillips, Fernando Mariellis, and Lulu Wang, Martin Scorsese, Greta Gerwig are in the latest Hollywood Reporter Roundtable. Highly recommended. Yeah, I've actually got that on my queue list. I got to go watch that because the Hollywood Reporter has done some great stuff. If you guys haven't seen any of their roundtable stuff, it's really, really fascinating. And this is, of course, a big powerhouse lineup of that. I've got that one lined up that I got to watch. Absolutely. So thanks for reminding me about that. Get off my lawn. All right. Noah Molaski writes, put this towards a new chair. Oh my gosh. A super huge donation. Thank you, Noah. Put this towards a new chair. I'm always complaining about how terrible my chair is. 10-year-old chair. Towards a new chair. And John, yes, I demand a standalone video for this. Just kidding. Oh, listen, seriously, Noah, thank you so much for supporting the channel on that level and the content that we do. And I really, really appreciate it. And yes, I am going to get a new chair. The good folks at JBL, I mentioned this the other day. I was whining, complaining about how bad my $7 headphones were, because I put all my money into the stuff that makes the show better for you guys to watch. So my headphones don't matter, but they sent me some. And then I was complaining about my chair, and because it's terrible. This is a terrible chair. And my ass always hurts at the end of every day, because it's just not, there's no cushion left in it. So I am going to go get myself a new chair, man. So thank you for that, Noah. I appreciate that, buddy. All right. And again, wow, thank you for supporting the channel on that level. John McKinney writes, Hayden Christensen is a nice guy, and I have nothing against him personally, but he's a terrible actor. See, I don't know. When you look, there are some films that Hayden Christensen's in that he's not all that strong in. Like there was that one he did, I believe, with Jessica Alba, where he was like, I think it was called Awake, where he's actually, nobody knows, but he's conscious as people are cracking his ribs open and doing heart surgery on him. It's horrible, but the performance wasn't that great. There was like this caper movie he was in that wasn't all that great. But then you look at something like My Life as a House, and it's like, no, like, well, look, when Hayden Christensen's in the right role with the right director, I think he can actually be pretty good. And there are a couple of performances of his. Do you have any, Rob, that stand out to you as particularly good?
Was it Shattered Glass where he was the reporter?
That might have been, yeah. I
thought he was pretty good in that. I mean, again, I think.
Let me double check. Keep talking.
I think, an actor does need direction. I think making films is absolutely a collaboration, and one of the most important collaborations is a director and their actors. I mean, a lot of people say that 90% of filmmaking is proper casting, but I don't think that even though you have the best cast in the world, you don't just set them loose. They're expecting a director to interact with them and help craft their performance from moment to moment, because it's the director who has the vision, presumably, of the whole film in his head or her head, and you need to work with your actors. You can't just cut them loose and expect them to deliver magic, because that's not what they're there for. They're there to collaborate. They're there to give the director what the director wants. And if you don't have strong directors who really know how to work with actors, you don't get the kind of performances that you need.
Yeah. Now, the truly great actors can often overcome that when there's that deficiency.
Yes.
But I think you can have talented, good actors, though, that if the direction's not right and whatever, it just won't work. But again, you're right. It was Shattered Glass, by the way. Rosario Dawson was in that too. When you put them in a good movie they have the right tools that they need, whether it's My Life as a House or Shattered Glass, then they show that they can actually be pretty good. So it all kind of depends on that. All right. Next question today comes to us from Daniel Hinoja, who writes, "How was 1917? Loved it. Absolutely loved it. It's going to be in my top 10. I'm still not quite sure how high in my top 10 is going to be, but I was not disappointed by 1917 at all." Raphael Rebel Spy Castillo writes, "I wish you could see the photo of my face after I rode Rise of the Resistance at Walt Disney World. I used to say it's like being on a Star Wars set, but it's more like being inside a Star Destroyer. Worth waking up in the wee hours to get on the virtual queue." And I am so excited because next week, our friend and American Olympian Cody Miller is taking a break from his massive competition and training, getting ready for the next Olympics. He's actually flying down here to Burbank next weekend, Rob. I forgot to mention that to you the other day. Yeah, so Cody's coming down. He's going to be staying with Dan and I, and one of the things that we've got on the docket is to go to Disney World and ride that new Rise of Resistance ride, because everybody is gushing about it. And yeah, that is one of the things that we heard, though. You got to show up at Disneyland at like the wee hours of the morning just to get put on in the virtual queue that may not even get you on the ride for 4 or 5 hours after that, but it's worth it. It's worth it. I'm so excited about it. Thanks for sharing your experience with that, Raphael. All right. Next up, Phil Corvelli writes, "Hey, John, recently watched Night Hunter. Found it kind of boring overall, but thought the acting was really good. Have you seen it? And what did you think of it? Hashtag bring on the filthy." Which one was Night Hunter again? I don't remember off the top of my head. Do you, Rob?
No.
Hold on a second. It sounds familiar. Hold on a second. Let me. It sounds brutally familiar. Oh, it's the Henry Cavill, Ben Kingsley one. No, that's like the straight to home video one. I did. You know what's funny? As great as Henry Cavill is, and I love him, he's been in a number of like straight to home video kind of movies, but that is not one, which you'd think I would because it's Henry Cavill. I loved him. It's got Alexandra Daddario, and I love her. It's got Ben Kingsley, and I love him. Stanley Tucci. Nathan Fillion. It's a great cast, but no, I didn't check it out. I might have, but thank you for putting it on my radar, though, man. All right. Scott McCauley writes, John Campea worth $3.9 million confirmed. I know there was like some internet there. I don't know if you saw that, Rob. Apparently the internet says I'm worth like 3.9 or like $4 million.
Wow. Can I have a raise?
I showed it to my wife as we were in the back of a Uber. I said, honey, did you see this? And she looks at me like, have you been holding out on me? I'm like, nope. I was like, go figure. It's confirmed. All right. Jared Murray writes, how am I supposed to lift a plane? There's nothing to push off. Bullshit. We all knew Homelander could save that plane with ease. I mean, yeah, it was, God, I've just run out of ways to describe how great that episode was. You know, I feel like in the last year, not only have we gotten great television, but I feel like we've gotten some of the, like some all-time, like top 50 episodes of television of all time.
Oh, yeah.
There was the nostalgia episode of Watchmen, which is one of the best episodes I've seen TV in a long time. There was the plane episode in The Boys, which is one of the most awesome episodes of television I've seen in a long time. There was the I flexed the wrong muscle episode of Doom Patrol, which is one of the absolute funniest things I've seen on TV in a long time. We've gotten a lot of great stuff this year, Rob.
Yeah, I know.
And yes, I think I thought it was an interesting conversation about lifting the plane, but I also think I don't know. Could he have? I don't know. It's a good question, Jared. It's a good question. All right. Swimmy writes, Disney recently changed the Star Wars timeline from BBY, ABY, that's before Battle of Yavin to after Battle of Yavin, to BSI, Starkiller. Maybe nerd rage, but I can't help but wag my finger at Disney again. I have not. Are you sure about that? I have not heard that. Have you heard? Because for those of you who don't know, for a long time, the timeline, like in our world, we go AD, like BC AD. Okay, that's kind of how we measure things. In the Star Wars universe, there are years that have always been counted by before the Battle of Yavin. That's the big battle at the end of the original Star Wars movie, and after the Battle of Yavin. Have you heard they've changed the timeline to something else?
I've been reading about that. I mean, I don't know. You know, these. I don't know these events. I guess so, but the funny thing about it is, you know, you just get a quick little glimpse. The destruction of 5 planets in Force Awakens they didn't really deal with it that much. It happened, then it was done. It was over. You never even had somebody sitting down going, "Oh, I'm feeling all the voices crying out," and then we're suddenly silenced. We didn't even get that moment. So Starkiller Base's destruction of the core system, I don't know, man. But I guess if they want to do that, they've done it.
All right. Well, it sounds stupid. Sounds stupid to me. I haven't even heard about it, but it sounds stupid. I'll have to look more into it, and maybe I will get my nerd rage too. All right, John McKinney writes, one of two. I just want to clarify on the sympathetic villain. Just because a villain believes they're doing the right thing does not mean they're redeemable. A good example would be my favorite Disney villain, Judge Cloud Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. He's a delusional, narcissistic liar and is pure evil. Oh, no. Look, I never said that a villain who believes themselves to be the hero. You misunderstood. I never said that was equivalent or was the same thing or equaled a villain being sympathetic. I said that it's like that having a villain who believes they are the hero, adding that element to a villain, instead of just, "Mwahaha, I am evil," as they twirl their mustache, like introducing other elements to that, like the villain actually believing they're the good guy, or like having elements to the character of the villain that can make you feel a little bit more sympathetic towards them. Like a great example of that is Dr. Freeze or Mr. Freeze from Batman. I mean, look, when you hear his story, when you hear Freeze's story, you cannot help but feel a little bit of empathy for the character. And yeah, that doesn't mean we condone that they then go on to be murderous psychopaths. No, but I find that when done right, but that's the key to it. It's when it's done right. When it's done right, it can add a level to the character and a dimension to the character that makes it a much richer character, even as a villain. But it's like anything else. Just because a character has some sympathetic elements to them doesn't automatically mean it's going to be a good character, or it doesn't automatically mean it'll be a bad character. It's still all about execution. But when done right, Rob, the way I feel about that is that introducing these different elements, whether the villain has a little bit of a sympathetic background, whether the villain is somebody who sees themselves as a hero, or something else altogether, I think it can flesh out the villain a little bit better. How do you see it?
Well, no, absolutely. And I think, I've always said, for instance, that Star Trek doesn't have villains. The best Star Trek has antagonists. And an antagonist is somebody who might be on the opposite side of the heroes, but you understand that person's motivation. You understand what's happening. And the more richly defined and the more multidimensional a villain is, the better off that you are in the long run. I mean, that makes the drama more interesting. It's like, Hans Gruber in Die Hard is a bad man. I mean, he kills Mr. Takagi in cold blood, but he's also very interesting, and he's a fun guy to watch. And I think that's really important when you make your villains multidimensional. And that's important in any franchise, whether it's Star Wars or whether it's, I don't know, Bad Boys for Life.
Now, look, I've also said before that sometimes certain movies call for, and what best serves certain movies is a I'm the bad guy. Like sometimes that type of villain
Sonic,
is exactly
John. Sonic.
Oh God, don't even get me going on Sonic. But sometimes there are movies that just really do require just a bad person as the villain. Sometimes, yes, and sometimes it requires other things. So that's how I feel about it. All right, Faye Haberfeld writes, watch Bombshell. I didn't like it. They portray Roger Ailes as a cartoon character instead of a human being. Very one-sided. Positives, great performances from Charlize and Margot. Would you say 1917 and Just Mercy are in your top 10 of 2019? I haven't filled out the top 10. 1917 is going to be in it. And by the way, from everything that I've read, I mean, even the people who didn't like Bombshell, I'm reading is actually fairly accurate. I'm reading Bombshell is actually fairly accurate. So sometimes one-sided stories, I'm not saying this is the case because I wasn't there, but sometimes one-sided stories are one-sided because it was one-sided.
Right.
Anyway, 1917 is going to be my top 10. That absolutely. Just Mercy may. I mean, that's how much I loved it. It may be in my top 10 of all time of the year. I haven't fully fleshed that out yet, so it could be. It could be. Rob, I didn't ask, have you had a chance to see 1917 yet?
No, and I'm dying to see it.
It's a movie you're going to love. You're going to love that movie. You're going to absolutely love it. All right. That Norwegian guy writes, Jack Hind, a suitable punishment by Mark would be force him to watch the Cats movie 100 times with his eyes open, like Alex in Clockwork Orange. No, I don't know, man. I don't know. That seems a little harsh. That might be pushing. That might not be an equal response to the crime. That might be a little bit too cruel and unusual at this point, Norwegian guy. But very creative thinking in your despotic kind of evil. I like the way you're thinking there. All right, Faye Haberfeld writes, Mark. Low-key looks like Timothy Spall. I can't remember who Timothy Spall is. Quick question. Are you still going to continue with the post-show chats on Discord? I understand that you're busy, but we were wondering if it's going to be a thing. Yes, it is going to be a thing. This obviously, yesterday was absolutely crazy. Today, I've got Aaron and Chris coming over after I'm done the show today, because I do some training with them on some things. Because obviously, a lot of you guys know this, Aaron and Chris haven't been around for a while. That's because they're not set up right now to come into the show via Skype and our face-to-face visual communication tools. So they're coming in today so I can get them trained up on that and how to do it properly, because I've got a lot of equipment stuff moving around, and with me doing the movie now, I haven't been my place is just a shambles. So I can't really bring people in right now. And that's why, like when Mark was on yesterday, I don't know if some of you noticed his camera wasn't the best. It's because I had to pull out a camera that I haven't used in forever, just set it up, set it to auto, blah, blah. I just didn't have everything in place for it. So today, no. But back on Monday, yes, the Discord, because what we've been doing, but we haven't in the last week or two because it's just been absolutely crazy. For those of you who are Patreon supporters, we've been jumping over after the shows and doing these 20-minute post-show chats in our Discord. And that will continue on again on Monday. So thanks for asking, Faye. All right. An anonymous viewer writes in. Probably it's Wayne Edwards, who writes, 1 or 2. Hello, John. I love La La Land. I love it too. It's really great. Before I saw it, I didn't care about musicals. After, I love musicals. I saw Les Miserables on HBO last night. I enjoyed it. But the internet and a few of my peeps who know musicals say they are both terrible. I forgot to put my name above on the first part. No problem. We got here. Rob says, you are a song and dance man. What am I missing with these musicals? Keep doing what you're doing, sir. Hey, no, look. First of all, they are not terrible. Les Mis is fan-fucking-tastic. And La La Land is fan-fucking-tastic. They're fantastic films. They're wonderful. Now, if you're somebody that doesn't like musicals, well, then they're not going to be for you. And that's perfectly fine. They're not going to be for you. Like, there are certain movies, I don't know, if you're not into BMX racing, then Rad is probably not a movie that's for you. You know, that's fine. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But no, I look, a musical is like anything else, Rob. A musical is like anything else. You can have great characters with great stories and have great emotional pull and stuff like that. It's just that they happen to be communicating in music rather than just in regular spoken dialogue. But all the same rules still apply. You got to have great characters with a great story, great chemistry, great pacing, all that kind of stuff. If you do all that well and it happens to be a musical, it can be fantastic. So yeah, I like a good musical. I don't like bad musicals, but I like a good musical. So I don't know, Rob, quick thoughts on Les Mis and La La Land.
Well, I got to say, I love musicals, and I loved La La Land, and I really liked Les Mis. And I've seen the stage production of Les Mis, and I didn't think they were terrible. I liked them a lot, and La La Land was a lot of fun. I mean, you know, are Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling the greatest song and dance people known to man? No. Was it Singing in the Rain? No. But it was still very, very enjoyable. And I think, look, musicals are an acquired taste. You have to be able to buy into the reality that people will burst into song at any moment for any reason. And once you go there, there's a certain whimsy that's inherent in the genre. You got to buy into that. And look, John, I love Singing in the Rain. I love West Side Story. I mean, these are some of my favorite movies.
All right, let's move on here. And next up, we've got Shane A. Miller, who writes, I watched Movie Talk back when it was still in the closet 5 or 6 years ago. Live was an extension of that for me, for Harloff, and watched live from the first episode. I watch daily. That's a long time and a lot of hours viewing. We deserved better. We deserved a goodbye show. And I agree. And if you guys saw my interview with Mark yesterday, and, you know, and again, let me just say something that I said yesterday several times. I really admire the fact that Mark came in. I really do. I mean, he stood up in front of the firing squad on his own stream. He stood up again. And, you know, I think he did a much better job yesterday of articulating what his thought process was than maybe he did on the first stream. And I really admire that. And I think he would now say too, yeah, in hindsight, we really should have given them a last show. And I think he's learned that. But, you know, he wrote that off to, it's a lesson that I've learned now. And now we're going to move forward. And hopefully we've all. I hope that it's not just Mark that's learned lessons from this. I hope I've learned lessons from this. I hope a lot of people learned lessons. Because I agree with you, Shane. Those shows should have been given farewell shows. They absolutely should have. And I think Mark agrees with that now. And it's a shame that it went down the way it did. But, you know, what can you do? You got to move forward. So thanks for sharing your thoughts, man. Suthius writes, did you have Mr. B stand guard in the room? Who's Mr. B? I don't know who Mr. B is, but no guards were required in the room.
Was
Canada
that me,
Rocks.
Mr. Burnett?
Oh, Mr. Burnett. Oh, maybe. Yeah, were you supposed to be a bouncer for that? I don't know, because the relation. Hey, look, I said on the show yesterday, the relationship between Mark Fernandez and I over the last couple of years has been, I think, to put it mildly, tumultuous. Is that maybe a good one? I don't know. It hasn't been good. And I thought yesterday was very positive, but no, Mark was, or I should say, Rob was not required to act as a referee in the room.
Although that would have been fun.
That could have been fun. All right, Canada Rocks. writes, one of two. I read Taika Waititi is already 2 months into shooting his new movie, Next Goal Wins, with Michael Fassbender and Elizabeth Moss, based on the 2014 documentary of the same name about the American Samoa soccer team considered the worst FIFA team ever. Watched the doc last night and I loved it. The story is tailor-made for Taika's sensibilities. Assuming it comes out late this year, it has now quickly become my most anticipated movie of 2020. Rob, I have not seen this documentary, but I've been hearing about the story of it. It sounds amazing. I probably should sit down and watch this. And listen, just the fact that Taika Waititi did Jojo Rabbit makes whatever he does next one of my most anticipated things. Now listen, Quiet Place 2 is still my most anticipated film of the year. Followed closely by films like Dune and other of others. But this... I got to see the documentary that you're talking about because it sounds fantastic. And just the fact that it's Taika Waititi doing it. And it's good to see. I'm hoping we get to see Michael Fassbender in an actual good movie, which we haven't really had the privilege of doing in quite a while. And Elizabeth Moss is great and whatever. Rob, do you know much about the story of this of the movie that's going on?
I don't. I really don't. But
right.
If Taika Waititi's doing it, I'm in.
Yeah, I mean that's just where we're at right now.
It's interesting that he's getting it done. He's getting it done. He's getting it done quickly. He's getting it done fast. But it's about a soccer team in like Malaysia or something. And he comes to coach this team to be in FIFA. I mean, I don't know much about it, but it sounds like it's great for me.
All right. Next up, Raphael writes in again. One of two. Regarding the Adam Driver walking out situation. Of course, Adam Driver walked out of an interview. I believe it was with NPR. When he gave instructions, he doesn't want clips of his stuff playing while he's doing an interview. And they decided to play a clip during his interview and he walked out. Anyway. I read the article about this. In 2015, Terry Gross gave him the option to take off his headphones while she played a clip relevant to her next question, which he did, no problem. This time around, he was again told the clip would and given the option to remove his headphones while that clip played. According to the engineer on his end, he did so, but left anyway, not making Mr. Driver the baddie, just clarifying. But to clarify even further, he had told them in advance. He reminded them in advance. His representation reminded them in advance that he did not want any clips of his stuff playing while he was being interviewed. I don't care what you do afterwards. I don't care that he came in and they said, oh, last time you did this was okay, so we're going to do it again. You might take... No. He through his representation, I'd already told them, reminded them he doesn't want that at all. Now, we can argue about whether he should feel that way or not. We can argue about that. But the fact of the matter is, he was being gracious enough to come in and do an interview. He said, if I'm coming in, but this is something I don't want done if I come in. And then you were like, yeah, come on in. All right, he comes in and then you do it anyway. I'm sorry. Adam Driver had every right to get up and walk out. Listen, if I sit down with Vin Diesel and Vin Diesel says, hey, listen, I'm glad you were able to do this interview together, but I would really appreciate it if you not talk about my socks. I don't know, whatever, his socks, fine. Then guess what? If I sit there and say, hey, Vin, after my first two questions, I go, now, Vin, I'm just really curious. You got some pretty sparkly socks there. What made you wear those socks? Then at that point, whether or not he should be upset by people asking him about his socks, whether he should care about whether we talk about his socks or not is irrelevant. The point is, he asked me as a condition of doing the interview, please don't bring up my socks. If I ask him a question about his socks, he's completely within his right to then get up and walk out, and I got no right to complain. So I look, this is sometimes celebrities act like dickwads, okay? There's no doubt about it. They absolutely do. But this is one of those situations where it's like, and look, it's not a big deal. He walked out of an interview. He didn't pick up his chair, throw it through a window, and then storm out of an interview. He got up and walked out of an interview. It's not like the interviewers asked him about some terrible thing he did in college. It was playing a clip. I don't really think there's any reason to be too terribly mad at NPR or Adam Driver here. He sent word. He didn't want this done. It was known he didn't want that done. They decided to do it anyway. He decided, okay, then I'm out, and he left. Problems. End of discussion. It's done. Anyway. So that's how I feel about that anyway, Raphael. All right. Next up, an anonymous viewer writes in. For me, the last film of a series is usually the weakest. There are Are there any examples where you feel the last film is actually the strongest? Oh yeah, Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi is the best Star Wars movie, the best movie of the best franchise of all time. Oh, it absolutely is.
God.
Yep. Return of the Jedi is the best film of the best film franchise of all time. And I'm not going to bore everybody by going into my long, extensive, fact-based rationale. It's all subjective.
I know you don't drink, man, but you're drunk.
Oh no, it's the greatest space battle scene in the history of film. The emotional tug of that Vader and Luke confrontation at the end and the thing there. The joyous re-exploration of Tatooine and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was just filled with all the best moments of Star Wars. I mean, and it's the greatest moment in Star Wars history. That the Emperor's throne room with Vader and Luke is the greatest scene and collection of scenes and setting in all of the Star Wars movies. It is absolutely 100% fact-based. It's all subjective.
I will grant you that. I think the highlight of that movie is the throne room confrontation.
Yeah, so to me, what would be another one that I think maybe the third? I mean, for a longest time, Rob, up till about 10 years ago, it was almost never that a sequel would be better than the original. But we quite often now do see sequels that are quite good. So specifically thirds, you could make an argument Toy Story 3. A lot of people may make an argument about Toy Story 3. Clearly, there's a good argument to be made for 1 and 2 as well. But, I mean, Toy Story 3 was the third animated film in history to be nominated for Best Picture at the Academy Awards. So there's that. Can you think of any other at the top of your head?
God, no. Even my favorite franchises, things like The Godfather. I couldn't say Godfather 3 is the best. Obviously, it's not. Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome is certainly not, although it's aged quite well. Man, John Wick 3 I don't think is better than John Wick 1. That's a tough one, man. I don't know.
But to your point, John Wick 3 is a good example of the third not being the weakest, because I like John Wick 2. I do, but John Wick 2 is the weakest of that franchise. I think at any rate. But again, it's all subjective. It's whatever you guys think. Interesting question, Anonymous. All right. Mitchell Chandler writes, I just got done watching your interview with Mark. If he cared at all about the future of Collider, he would step down as CEO. He follows trends and then bails on them when he gets a new idea. A company needs core values and direction. Otherwise, it's chaos. I don't necessarily agree. Look, you guys don't know all the stuff that Mark Fernandez has been involved in the past, and he's got some really big successes in his history. He does. Yeah. Not everything. Not everything.
Plus, he owns Collider.
Yeah, there's no stepping. I mean, he could decide to own it and yet step down and cede control of the company to somebody else as he owns it. Much like, say, some NFL team owners are very directly involved, but a lot of NFL team owners just own the team and they hire a president to just run everything and the owner kind of stays out of it. Yeah, I mean, he could do that, but I mean, look, I think there's a lot of interesting stuff that Mark has a vision for. Sure. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff. And, one of the things that I said to him during the interview was, I don't reject the idea of having solid celebrity-based stuff, like their For Your Consideration stuff. It's really good. Particularly this For Your Consideration viewing series they do, it's really good. It doesn't get a ton of views. Not a lot of people care about it, but it's really good. Right. And Scott and Jeff and Perry, they do a wonderful job on that. The first couple of deep fake videos were hilarious. I thought they were absolutely hilarious. I think they could play a role, and not everybody would have the vision to do that kind of stuff. And then let's take a second and at least acknowledge how, big of an accomplishment those things are. They're really good. Yep. But to me, they're accents, You need I believe you need core programming that builds the community so that, and what I said to Mark yesterday was, I see those things like the celebrity stuff and the deep fake stuff and whatever as really beautiful rotating doors. They're great content to bring in new audience. The problem is, without other core content to keep people there, they just go right back out the other side of the rotating door. and they leave. And now you're right back at square one again. We got to make another video that's going to bring those people back again. Instead of bringing new audiences in, which I believe shows like For Your Consideration can do with all these great movie things they're doing, that things like deepfake and other things, they can do that. I think they're great accents and complementary material to core material. But it does take vision to even have those really good accents. And I'll tell you what, let me tell you something, to be honest with you. I struggled. Now, I led AMC Movie Talk and Collider through its biggest growth stuff and all that kind of stuff. But you know what I struggled with, Rob? You know, one of the things that was not my forte was that accent stuff. I wasn't great at the accent stuff. I was great at developing the core stuff. But I think if you had to look back and like critique, I mean, obviously I got tons of flaws and tons of weaknesses, but one of those, I believe, is I wasn't the best at coming up with and really executing the accent stuff, that stuff that could kind of bring in new people to come in and check the thing. I think that was one of my weaknesses, and Mark was I think Mark is pretty good at it. And so, I don't know. I think at this point, people just got to give him a chance to, let's see what his vision is. To bring it back to another sports analogy, Rob, you know, a football coach comes in and you say, well, you got to give the coach a couple of years to really build what their culture is going to be there. Let a coach really pursue their vision for what this team can be. And you got to give them at least a couple of years to get there. I say, as Mark is making this new transition, I think you got to give him some time. Give him some time to see how it turns out. Is it what I would have done? No. But we've seen other examples where what I would have done wasn't necessarily the right thing to do, right? So let's see how it goes. So no, I don't think he should step down as CEO. And look, I'm not going to pretend that Mark Fernandez and I right now are holding hands and singing Kumbaya. Like yesterday, Harloff texted me about the interview, and he said, "So, are you and Mark good now?" This is something that Harloff wrote to me. Oh, I said, "Oh no, I wouldn't say that." I said, I won't go so far as to say that things between me and Mark are good now. No, I don't know. I'm not going to go there. But I did say it was constructive. It was constructive, and I think it was cathartic, and it was good for me. It was good for me on a cathartic level.
You did a fantastic job, John. I thought you managed that conversation very, very well. You kept it on point, and it spoke to me about your character. I thought you did a phenomenal job.
Well, thank you. And to be honest, I thought Mark did a much better job with the interview yesterday than he did with the town hall thing he did.
100%. But you kept him on point, and you asked him the tough questions.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate that. So yeah, Mitchell, I would say give it a shot. Give it time. Maybe not give it a shot. I would say give it time. Give it time. Let's see what happens. All right. Mitchell also writes, had a conversation with my local movie theater managers regarding movie advertised versus start time. They agreed with me that it was getting ridiculous and that he would be open to dialogue with his superiors. Do you think this practice will eventually change? I don't know, but it's got to change. Because I think, it speaks directly to the movie-going experience for a lot of fans when you show up for a movie that said it was going to start at 8 and it doesn't start till 9. Well, not 9, but it doesn't start till 8:28 or 8:30 or 8:35. These things directly affect the movie-going experience. And will it change? I don't know, but it's got to change. It's got to change. So good on you, Mitchell, for having a conversation with the theater owner. Mitchell Chandler also writes, talking/using phone in theater is an age-old issue. However, I've had more trouble with it recently. What is your approach to dealing with these people? I have a hard time asking them to stop, and I don't want to get up and tattle to the usher every time. I've got to say that thankfully for me, my experience has been a little bit different over the past 5 years. I've found that the issues for that have gone down. Now, what I still find, Rob, is that every once in a while in a movie theater, I'll see somewhere up 8 rows, the little glow of somebody looking at their phone. Yeah. But I found that doesn't happen as often, from my experience. I found it doesn't happen as often as it used to. And it's usually very short now. Like when I see a little glow come on, I mean, a few years ago, I'd see that glow come on and it would be on for like 5 minutes. Right now, it's like somebody's like, I don't know, they felt the vibration go off, so they check it like 3 or 4 seconds, and it goes off. And also, like 4 or 5 years ago, I mean, you know what I haven't had in a long time? Somebody answer their phone in a theater. I haven't had that happen in a while, because not too long ago, oh my God, that used to happen. That used to happen. So I have personally not, but listen, when somebody in a theater is doing something that is not just taking away from your enjoyment of the film, but it's taking away the enjoyment of 100 other people who paid money to be in that theater to enjoy a movie.
Yep.
Then it's not ratting. It's not ratting. You got to go to the theater and fix that problem. Because that person isn't a person in that situation. They're a squeaky cog that's distracting everybody from what they paid for to be there. And yeah, I am all for in that going out and getting them. I mean, ask politely first. Say, excuse me, can you turn that off? And if that doesn't work, then you absolutely go and get a manager, because otherwise you're going to ruin your experience and ruin the experience of hundreds of other people. Rob, how do you manage situations like that?
You know, I had a situation when I was at the Hollywood Bowl at a concert, a classical concert. And in the middle of the concert, the people behind us started talking. And I let it go for a while, but then they kept talking. There was the intermission. I figured they'll stop. They kept talking. And finally, I just turned around and let them have it. This was this past year, John. I let them have it. Quickly, quick, terse. And at the end of the concert, a guy behind me, one of those guys that was being rude, wanted to take me outside and have a fight about it. And I'm like, you know what? I whenever that happens, I lean forward and I just talk a little lower. And I'm like, fine. If this is what you want to fight about, let's go fight about it.
Well, dude, you're like 6'2", 250 pounds. Of course that's going to intimidate somebody.
But I mean, it was what I don't understand is if it's amazing that people live in such a bubble that when you're out in the public arena, you know, you can't expect the world to bend to you. You need to bend to the world. You need to be able to function in a civilized society and be part of the body politic. And if you go into a public environment where people are spending money to be there to experience something, and you put your own bad self in front of that, why are you there in the first place? Is a movie, if you go and pay for a movie, isn't the movie, at least for that 90 minutes or 2 hours that you're there, more important than your own concerns? And if it's not, then why are you in the movie in the first place? There are other people around you. They have paid to be there, and you are ruining their experience. And I hate that. I hate that it's one of the things I hate the most, because it shows that somebody has a fundamental disrespect for the community that they belong to. And I think that that's the worst kind of behavior, and it really irks me. And look, I'm nicer about it, because now people carry guns or knives and they'll get mad and they'll be like, oh, you've disrespected me in public. No, you disrespected yourself is what you did. And you disrespected all of your whole community. And by me calling you on it, the problem is not mine. The problem is yours. And I just think that if, you know, we have to be ever vigilant. And I look, that's why if somebody has more groceries than I do when I'm standing in line at the grocery store, I always let somebody go first, because really, is 3 or 4 more minutes going to cost me? I don't know. I'd rather be polite and make sure that our community is better off than it was when I showed up. And I hate that. It's one of my, I don't know, it gets me angry, John.
Well said. Well said. All right, let's move on here. Mitch also writes, what is more important to you, the beginning or end of the movie? To me, it's the ending. I understand that if the beginning doesn't hook you, it's harder to recover. However, the ending either gives you closure or it fails and you feel sour leaving the movie. I'm going to tell you what, neither. I honestly, and maybe this is just the way my head works, when I step out of a movie, I really do look back on it as one package. I don't look at it in terms of its parts. I look at it in terms of one package. Because, like, take Venom, for example. I really like Venom, but it starts slow. It starts slow. But it turned into something that I really enjoyed. I've gone to a lot of movies where it's like, oh God, I really enjoyed that movie. The ending kind of falls apart. Third act isn't all that great. But overall, it was a really fun, great, enjoyable movie. So I really just look at it that way, because I think you can recover from a slow start. You can survive a fall off the rail kind of ending. And I just kind of look at it as one totality of a package. Rob, when you go as a viewer yourself, that is very unique from me. Do you have particularly one that's a little more important to you as for your overall enjoyment as far as a good start or a strong finish?
Well, it's interesting. I think that you need a great setup to get you involved in a story. But like you said, if a movie starts slow, a slow start doesn't bother me. But I really do think it's important that the third act and that the finish of a movie, it sticks the landing, because that's what you're left with. And there's a lot of movies, like you say, Venom starts slow, but if you've enjoyed it and it takes you somewhere, and by the time you get to the end, you've gone on a journey, you're not thinking about the fact that, well, the beginning of the journey was kind of slow. You're satisfied by where the journey wound up. And some of the best journeys I've ever taken, both in the real world and in movies, started out slowly, and it was that buildup and that anticipation and how the story unfolded that drew me in and set me up, so to speak. And if it delivers, if it leaves you on that note, like, wow, that was awesome. There's a reason why roller coasters, take you slowly up that first big mountain and then dump you in. If they started out fast from the very beginning, well, then where do they take you? I think it's more important that a story knows where it's going and it takes you there in fine fashion.
All right, let's move on here. Jonathan writes, congrats, Rob. You are now part of my movie pundits, part of a list of movie pundits on YouTube I love and respect. Joining you is Stuckman, Jeremy Johns, Mr. John Campea himself, and now the fantastic Lord of Geeks, Robert Meyer Burnett. From Stuckman, I learned the technicalities and craft of filmmaking, like lighting and camera angles. From Johns, I learned to be a movie lover while still upholding the artistry behind each film. He's also super chill. From Campea, I learned what it means to be a film fan. You taught me that film is subjective, and before you, I struggled accepting the differences. But because of you, I learned to have healthy debates as a film fan without the toxicity, so thank you, good sir. Finally, from Rob, I learned to love and accept the geek side in all of us. Your enthusiasm shines bright with every show. Thank you all for making me a better film fan and giving me the knowledge of films. In the words of Johns, you are all awesome-tacular. And listen, I got to tell you, one of the privileges, yeah, oh, it totally is. Thank you so much for that, Jonathan. One of the privileges of me doing my show, besides the fact of the ultimate privilege that I get to hang out with the film fan community, you guys every day, we get together, talk about our favorite things, all that kind of stuff, which is obviously the most supreme honor that I can have. One of the great things, though, is that when I get to have Robert Meyer Burnett on the show, is obviously because he's got a lot of really good insight, a lot of great experience, and just some really good points of view, which is wonderful. But what brings the joy to it is he brings an enthusiasm and an energy to that knowledge and experience all along with it. So it leaves somebody like me, Rob, not just enjoying, like not just benefiting from, wow, that's a great point of view, but also then enjoying and being able to have fun with it as well. And I think that is something that you bring to the space. So yeah, accept that. What to say.
No, thank you all. And I really appreciate that letter. It's funny, in doing this, John, I too have developed a healthy appreciation. First of all, I obviously admire what you've done yourself, and you've taught me so much about working in this space, but also the other people that he brought up. I like watching. I mean, I was lucky because didn't you bring Jeremy Johns down, and he was working at Collider for a while?
Yes.
Jeremy Johns is just, what a delightful guy he is in real life. And he's from the Pacific Northwest, where I'm from, so it's not surprising. But people like Chris Stuckman, I really enjoy watching their content. I like their insight, and I like what they have to say. And I think what's really interesting about our whole world, this whole movie pundit space, is there's a lot of pretty great people. There's not a bunch of, at least in our neck of the woods, there's not people I'm like, well, I hate that guy. It's not like that. I mean, all these people I've really enjoyed, like our viewer, I've enjoyed being a part of it. And I do sample the wares that other people are putting out, and I really enjoy them. And it was great to meet and work with people like Jeremy Johns, although I still owe him a Hot Toy figure. I lost a bet.
All right. Thanks for sending that in, Jonathan. That was a great message to get. And we'll end things off here with Robert's time here with Michael W. Roberts, who writes, I was really impressed by Mark's willingness to self-reflect. So was I. What do you think will happen with Tom Brady? He and Belichick have given me so much joy. Me too. They can do no wrong. I know you are a coach guy, but I can't decide which one I like more. You. I like Brady more. I probably follow Belichick more, but I don't think Tom Brady is a New England Patriot next year. I don't think Tom Brady's a New England Patriot next year. I actually think he might be the quarterback of the Los Angeles Rams next year. I really do. Because right now they've got Jeff Goff as quarterback, and he had a decline season. Let's say that. He was showing tons of promise the last year or two, and then this year was a decline season. And I can't help, and the LA Rams are the type of team that Brady would go to, a team that is built right now that they can win if they've got the right captain of the ship. You know what I mean? And I think they can win if they've got a Brady there. And I think they also might look at it as a season or two for Jeff Goff to play back up to the greatest quarterback of all time and Tom Brady. So I think he's going to kind of end up there. Rob, you got any guesses where Tom Brady's going to end up next year?
I don't know, but there's chatter that he's coming to California, that him and Giselle are packing up and they're coming west.
Yeah, and that really gives you two choices. It's either the Chargers, but they got Phillip Rivers, and I don't think he's about to retire. And then you got the LA Rams, who's got Jeff Goff, who's had a decline of a year and maybe could really benefit from sitting for a year behind Tom Brady. I don't know, but do you got a guess?
I don't, but I do think you're right that I think this is the end of the line for Tom Brady and the Patriots. And what a great dynasty. What a great thing that they've look, as much as I'm a Seahawks fan and I can say I hate the Patriots, you can't deny greatness. And the Belichick Brady team up has been one of the, in all of professional sports, it's been amazing.
Yeah, so 6 rings.
Unbelievable. I mean, that's a gauntlet, right, John. That's a gauntlet.
It is. He snapped it all out. All right, guys, that will do it for Rob's time. He's got some things he's got to do. Now, of course, we still have about a good half hour to go. We're going to get through a bunch more of your questions, but we are going to say adieu to Robert Meyer Burnett right now, who will, of course, be back again on Monday. So, Robert, in the meantime, where can people find you and all of your online gloriousness?
You can find me on Instagram at Robert Meyer Burnett. Find me on Twitter at BurnettRM, or on my own YouTube show, Robservations, the show about something, on my YouTube channel, The Burnett Work.
All right, Rob, thanks a lot for being here, man, and we'll talk to you again on Monday.
All right, thanks for having me.
All right, guys, let's keep right on rolling now through the rest of the questions. You guys have sent in a whole bunch more, so let's just keep this thing rolling here. Min writes in, got a chance to see Return to the King Extended Edition in theaters yesterday. Wow. I had never seen the regular film in theaters before. It was 4 hours and 20 minutes. What is the longest film you have ever seen in theaters? Director's cuts counting. You bow to no one. You, my friends, you bow to no one. One of the greatest lines ever. I think that's it. I think seeing the extended edition in theaters, the 4+ hours, I mean, maybe that's not true. Maybe there was another one I'm in, but I think I'm in the same boat as you. I think that might be maybe not the longest one I've ever seen, period, but I think that was the longest one I probably ever saw in theaters. And you know what? Now with Rob gone, I'm going to take off the headphones. Even though they're incredibly comfortable, it's nice to not have to wear them. That is, I think that would also be my absolute longest one. Longest one ever. All right, let's move on here. Ryan Lohner writes, it's so weird now to think that Disney almost went bankrupt several times through the 20th century, even reduced to doing cheap package movies for most of the 40s. Oh no, I mean, that's the thing. When you look back, even some of the biggest, most powerful companies, I mean, even look at Apple. I mean, Apple today is like maybe the most dominant company in the world. But it was within my lifetime that they had several periods in their history where it looked like maybe they won't even make it. If you want to see some really interesting things about that, there was a little movie made with I'm forgetting Michael's last name. Anyway, and Noah Wyle called The Pirates of Silicon Valley. And it really goes over that. And it's like, and now it's weird because Apple's like the most dominant company in the world, but there were times in their history where they came really close to being out of existence. Disney's no exception, man. Every story has its ups and downs. All right. Joe Kuehl writes, hey, John and crew. Love the show. Thank you so much, Joe. I'm a huge fan of Noah Hawley. Did I not Oh, no, Noah Hawley. I said Noah. Who did I said Noah Hawley. Who is the guy who used to be on ER? I think it's Noah something, isn't it? Anyway, I think I might have said Noah Hawley accidentally. I'm a huge fan of Noah Hawley. Legion was the best of the Marvel TV run, and Fargo is fantastic. The trailer for season 4 just dropped. Rob was talking about that. Do you watch Fargo? I hope Feige stays in contact with him since he passed on his doom. I do not watch Fargo. Not that I dislike Fargo. I've never seen it. I've seen the movie. I've never watched any of the TV show, but I've had a lot of my friends tell me, hey, listen, the next time you're sick for a weekend and you're just kind of laid up on the couch under a blanket, watch Fargo. I've had everybody I know that has seen Fargo, Joe, loves it. So I probably do need to check that out. I was hit and miss on Legion. I ended up loving season 1 and I couldn't take season 2. I got like to episode 5 or 6 and I'm like, and me and Ann were both like, we're out. I know a lot of people love season 2 and that's great, but I love season 1, but I just could not get into season 2. I tried, but the dude has got such a creative mind. It's going to be really interesting to see what he brings to Star Trek for sure. All right. AD writes, I've been following you since AMC. Thank you so much, AD. I think I'm always most impressed by your business acumen and ability to convey your point. That video with the Collider CEO was just magnificent and smart. Dude, you should teach a class. These skills are transferable. Well, thank you so much. And you know what? I thank you to everybody who sent in such kind feedback on that. I thought Mark did very well. Again, I'm not going to pretend that me and Mark are on good terms now, but I think it was constructive. I think it was good, and I think he acquitted himself well. And I did the best I could to be fair. I wanted to ask the questions that people were asking and wanted to hear an answer for. And some of those were going to be difficult. And I did let Mark know in advance that, hey, dude, listen, I'm not going to shy away from these questions. These are questions that need to be asked. Do you feel up to answering those? And to his credit, he was like, yes. And I got to say, overall, I was pretty happy with how the interview went. I'm happy for Mark and how it went for him. I'm happy for me and how it went for us. So, yeah, I think it worked out well. So thank you for the kind words, AD. I really appreciate that, man. All right, AD also writes, also, you clearly are movie talk. While I agree that the talent at Collider was A+, the fans are mostly Campea fans. Remove you, and it's a different show to most. Heroes was Schnepp. Whenever I introduce new people to the show, they all agree. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But to be fair, the reason that that's the case is because that movie talk was built around me, right? So clearly, like, if I had started movie talk and say, instead of having me in the main chair, let's say I had, I don't know, Dennis Zen in the main chair for whatever reason. Let's say I had Dennis there. Then all of a sudden, now the show kind of becomes built around him. So clearly, a lot of his DNA would then be in the show. So to be fair, I think a lot of the fact that movie talk was my DNA was also because it was kind of built, we built it around me because I was the guy who was there. I think if we had put somebody else in that chair, it very well arguably could say it would be them as well. And I think I did a good job. I think I did a pretty good job with it. But yeah, it's not to say that it couldn't have been somebody else. It absolutely could have been somebody else. And I think I could have been replaced. But that opens up a whole nother discussion about a whole bunch of other things. But thank you for the kind words, AD. I really appreciate it, man. All right, the Delusionator. I like that name, writes, hey, John and Rob, love the show. Thank you so much. And thanks to you guys, I was able to get the final Jeopardy question right last night. Oh, what was it? That's legit. Here's a quick question. Do you guys think that the Guardians will cameo in Thor: Love and Thunder? I don't, but see, you can't say that, Delusionator, and not tell me what the last question. Do me a favor. Can you email me, john@thejohncampeashow.com? Just email me at john@thejohncampeashow.com and let me know what that final question was, because now I'm curious. Anyway, there is a good... See, I don't think Guardians will appear in Thor: Love and Thunder. But you can make a good argument why they might. I mean, obviously, with the way Endgame ends, with Thor, with the Guardians and all that kind of stuff, and his interaction with them all the way in Infinity War and all that kind of stuff, you could make an argument for that. I still don't think they will, though. So if I had to put $1 on it, if I had to bet $1, I'm saying no, they won't appear. But I won't be shocked if they do. Let's just put it that way. I won't be shocked if they do. I'll bet $1 that they won't, but I won't be shocked if they do. All right. Thanks for asking that, man. Murray Reich writes, check out on SEN channel a 3-minute clip of this guy's perfect mimicking Morgan Freeman voice, but as Jar Jar Binks. I literally fell off my chair. I have not seen that or heard of that, but that sounds pretty glorious. I think I'm going to have to check that out. Thank you for the heads up on that, Murray. BC33 writes, saw Richard Jewell. Wow, powerful movie. Hauser, Bates, and Rockwell gave outstanding performances. The backbone of the film. I hated Olivia Wilde's and John Hamm's characters so much, which is a good thing. I wanted to punch them in their beautiful faces. Well, I was going to say, like, I didn't know you were about to mention Olivia Wilde. I was going to say, when you mentioned powerful performance from Hauser, who was a revelation in this movie, by the way, Bates and Hauser, I was going to say, I thought Olivia Wilde was really good. And then you mentioned Olivia Wilde, John Hamm's character. But that's the thing, right? They make you, their job is to get you to hate them. And if they did that, they did a great job. Hauser, though, again, he came up the other day. I first noticed Hauser in I, Tonya, where he was the guy's best friend, right? So I loved him in I, Tonya. I thought, this guy's hilarious. And then he popped up again in Black Klansman, in which he was also hilarious and amazing. And it was so cool to see him get like a leading role like that. And I'm telling you, I'm becoming a big fan of this dude. All right, Chris Showbris writes, happy 2020, John, and happy 2020 to you as well, Chris. I'm looking forward to this year, my film, My 5 most anticipated are 5, Onward, which looks awesome, by the way. 4, Wonder Woman 84. 3, Black Widow. 2, Mulan. 1, Raya and the Last Dragon. Cheers to another exciting year of film. Can't wait to get started. Those all look great, but I'll tell you what, this Raya and the Last Dragon, some of you may not have heard of it yet. They did a big presentation on Raya and the Last Dragon at D23 this year, and my jaw was on the floor. There was nothing else that I enjoyed more, or I think had a bigger impact on me than that Raya and the Last Dragon stuff. Guys, I know you probably don't know a lot about it right now, but buckle in, because I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be really, really, really great. And Onward looks fantastic as well. I mean, Patty Jenkins is directing Wonder Woman 84, so I just assume it's going to be great. I have question marks about Black Widow. Mulan looks great, but the new James Bond looks fantastic. Dune looks fantastic. Quiet Place 2 is at the top of my list right now. On and on and on. That Taika Waititi one we were just talking, Next Goal Wins. I mean, just a lot of good-looking film coming up in 2020. I think a lot of us have good reasons to be excited. All right, Jonathan Meredith writes, hey, John, I know you have already addressed why Dark Side Light Side was put on hiatus, but I just want to say I hope you and Christian do something together in the future. If not Star Wars, maybe you revisit the whole Campea / Harloff show concept. Oh, listen, Christian and I are always going to do something together. As a matter of fact, Christian was supposed to be on today's show in a segment. Christian and I were supposed to get together. Christian was going to come over to my house yesterday, because he was going to be in the neighborhood anyway, but he was going to come over to my place. We were going to record a quick segment about a news topic, and then that segment was going to be a part of today's show, because we've done that before, if you remember. But I had something going on in the afternoon that took a lot longer than I thought, so I had to cancel on it. But you will see Christian pop up doing segments here on the John Campea Show. You will probably see me at some point doing little pre-recorded segments for SEN. You'll probably see that. But yeah, Christian and I really enjoy doing stuff together. Our schedules and where we live also makes it very difficult for us to do things at the same time, but we will always do something together. And yeah, it's unfortunate about that, but I don't think either of us have the time for a full show, like a Campea Harloff show. With me doing my movie and him, he's got a lot of really good stuff going on. I don't know that that's going to happen anytime soon, but you'll see us together. All right. Thanks for writing that in, man. Rangers for Life writes, I was thinking of something for this year's NHL All-Star game. They should have a shootout with all the All-Stars, and Jack Hind would be the goalie. That would be enough of an apology for me. Yeah, I keep forgetting that the All-Star game's coming up, man. I mean, the NHL All-Star game is the best All-Star game in sports. You can make an argument for the NBA game. I mean, obviously the football All-Star game, the Pro Bowl is useless. Nobody does anything. It's touch football. Nobody does anything. If you're not a hockey fan, tune in and watch the All-Star game, because it's a lot of fun. Anyway, thanks for writing that in, Rangers. Chris Shorbus writes, my Star Wars is How to Train Your Dragon. Seeing it end in 2019 was bittersweet. I miss my beloved franchise a lot. It was my escape, and the relationship of Hiccup and Toothless reminds me of a special relationship I had with my cat, my pal, Turner. I love it. Listen, How to Train Your Dragon, right from the first film, was a franchise to me that so caught me by surprise. Because at that time, like a lot of the animated stuff coming out that wasn't Pixar was a little bit questionable. And How to Train Your Dragon, to be honest, did not look all that good. But I saw it. I was floored by that first one. And to me, what was really special about it was Hiccup and his father. Like that to me is what really hooked me in. And then I thought How to Train Your Dragon 2 was even better. And then I don't think How to Train Your Dragon 3 was the best of the bunch, but it was totally worthy of the franchise. It was a wonderful, wonderful film. And the ending of How to Train Your Dragon 3 is so, that last 5-minute scene is so perfect. It was such a perfect way to end it. And by the way, not only was it a perfect way to end the story, it was a perfect way to end it that if 7 years from now they decide they want to revisit How to Train Your Dragon, they left it in a perfect spot to come back and revisit it in the future if they want to. So I'm not going to say How to Train Your Dragon is my Star Wars or anything, but I really appreciate that franchise, and I'm glad you do too, Chris. All right, Drew Patosh writes, "Hey, John, love you guys. Thank you so much, Drew. I appreciate your insight as a former leader at AMC Movie Talk and Collider. What do you think are the top 3 most important traits for an entrepreneurial/leader? And what is the most important lesson you've learned in business?" Well, that's a huge question, and it is a $50 question, so I will answer this in its own standalone video. Off the top of my head, and I may change this by the time I get around, Drew, to answering it in your own video, and thank you for supporting the channel on that level, man. I really appreciate that. Number 1, you cannot be afraid of failure. It's not that don't worry about failing. You won't fail. No. You're going to fail. Accept it. Embrace the inevitability that you're going to have failures on the way. There are going to be things you want to try, and there are going to be things that don't work. And you can't be thrown by the fact that they don't work. You have to be willing to try new things. You got to be willing and accept the fact that you're going to fail at a bunch of them. And you got to be willing to just immediately move on in a new direction, learn your lessons from them, and move on in a new direction. The second thing, which I think a lot of people will say they know, but don't actually do, is always be looking at the big picture. Always look at the big picture. Don't just worry about how this one little thing here will work. Think about how will this one little thing affect the things around it, and then in the large scale of things, how will it have an impact on what it is I'm trying to do. And very few people will actually look at the big picture. They say they do, but very few people actually do. And I think that's a big thing. And anyway, I could go more into it, but I think I'll save it for when we actually get around to your question. And again, Drew, we will be answering your question in its own standalone video in the upcoming days. Probably by Tuesday or Wednesday, you should see it pop up on the channel. So keep your eyes open for that. Thank you for supporting the channel on that level, man. And it's a great question. All right. Ash here writes, let the movie talk rights revert back to Campea. Hey, listen, I wouldn't mind having them back. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to be facetious. Yeah, I wouldn't mind having the name Movie Talk back. It's a name I created. It's a name I fostered and developed and built and all that kind of stuff. But I am okay with Collider keeping it if they're going to do something with it eventually. The only thing I don't want to have happen is that Movie Talk goes in the closet and then just sits there for the next 20 years and collects dust. If that's what's going to happen, I'll make a push to try to see if I can get the name back. But if they're going to do something with it, then I'm totally content. And Mark mentioned that they may have future plans for it. If that's the case, I'm totally content. Tacky75 writes, after all, it's just a name, but it's a name that's got emotional sentimentality connections with me. Anyway, Tacky75 writes, John, in my list of the best 90s movies, I mentioned Lady Bird by Ken Loach, not the Greta Gerwig movie like you seem to believe. I'm not familiar with Lady Bird, to be honest with you. That's probably why I went, like, do you mean Lady Bird? Which is not a 1990s film and stuff like that. You know what? Let me pull this up quick. What is Lady Bird? Or maybe I did see it and I'm just forgetting it, which happens sometimes. Lady Bird. 1994, Chrissy Rock. I'm not familiar with this one, but Ray Winstone's in it, and I love Ray Winstone, so maybe I should be familiar with it, but I'm not familiar with that one. Thank you for the clarification on that, Tacky75. Appreciate it. See, one of the great things here is, listen, there are so many hundreds of thousands of movies out there. I actually love it that I keep learning about films that were never on my radar from the community, which is awesome. So thanks for putting that on my radar, Tacky. All right, David Crabtree writes, Hey, John, happy Friday, man. Thank you so much, David. So here are my top 10 favorite films of this past decade. Here it goes. Number 10, The Martian. Love it. Number 9, The Force Awakens. Number 8, Creed 2. Really? More than the first Creed. Interesting. I like Creed 2, but I really prefer Creed 1, but that's interesting that's there. Number 7, American Sniper. Nice. Number 6, Hacksaw Ridge. Love that movie. Number 5, Real Steel. Not in my top 10 of the decade, but I really like that movie, man. I thought Hugh Jackman was great in that. Number 4, Creed. Oh, so you do have Creed over Creed 2. There you go. Number 3, 13 Hours. Number 2, Footloose. Damn right. Really? The new Footloose. Really? Okay, I don't know that I've ever heard that. And number 1, Warrior. Warrior was so freaking good. I'm forgetting the name of the because Tom Hardy and Uncle Owen. I gotta look it up. Uncle Owen. Joel Edgerton. Directed by Gavin O'Connor. Such an underrated movie. See, and I think a lot of people never went to go give Warrior a chance because MMA was still kind of just becoming a big thing. It was really just at the precipice of becoming a big thing. And I think a lot of people still didn't really know what to do. Like, what's this MMA thing and blah, blah, blah. And a lot didn't check it out, but Warrior is a magnificent film. If you haven't seen Warrior, I highly, highly suggest that you do because it is damn fantastic. Anyway, nice list, David. I liked it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Samuel Shin writes, bummed about Derrickson leaving Strange. Me too, man. I wanted to see him push the PG-13 horror boundaries this time around. Could be wrong, but I feel like Disney wouldn't let him be too scary. Just my speculation. I agree. Listen, Bob Iger is very, very protective of the brand. That's part of what makes him such a great CEO. He is very protective of the brand. And I agree that much like in the first Doctor Strange movie, they didn't let him go too far, right? They didn't let him go too far with the horror elements, but they let him go far enough. And I don't know, maybe part of this is that he wanted to push the boundaries even more to the point that maybe Feige or Iger were a little bit concerned that it was breaking brand. I don't know. Again, that's why I brought the question. Is this studio interference? Is it not? How do you see it? All that kind of stuff. It's a fabulous kind of case study to look at for, this world of the MCU and how it operates. Because again, this isn't the first time a director has departed a project, but it doesn't happen often in the MCU. Like when you look at the Star Wars universe, they had 5 or 6 directors come and go on just 5 or 6 movies. It does not happen that often in the MCU. And so when it does happen, it gets all of our attention. So yeah, I'm going to be really curious to find out probably in the coming years what was the issue? What was the core issue that made this creative differences thing a problem? So I'm going to be curious to find that out, Samuel, but I'm with you, man. I'm also bummed that he's not doing it. Mad1306 writes, by Derrickson being out, I'm not worried, but a lot of people are. Kevin Feige has been through this before with Ant-Man, and look how that movie turned out. Yeah, but that's one example. And the Ant-Man example was a very different example. Ant-Man was a situation where Simon Pegg, Edgar Wright, where Edgar Wright pitched this idea for Ant-Man, had an idea for a movie, but this was before the MCU was a thing. And then years and years and years passed, and then suddenly the movie they were cool with making, all of a sudden that movie didn't fit with the MCU that they had now. And so it was a really different circumstance. And by the way, it's not like the change happened last minute before they were already going into pre-production. It was long before they went on to work on the Ant-Man film. So I don't know that that's a good case study. But the one thing I agree with you, Matt, is that in Feige we trust. He clearly knows what he's doing. And so I'm going to believe that it's all going to work out. But I am bummed out that it's not going to be Derrickson because he did such a great job with that last film. All right. Anonymous writes, hi, John. I was wondering the other day, whatever happened to Chaos Walking, directed by Doug Liman, and Holland and Ridley? Do you think it will ever see the light of day? And what are the chances it ends up on streaming? Thanks and have a good weekend. It will be released. It was supposed to come out in 2019, like 4 or 5 weeks before it was supposed to release, when everybody's realizing, hey, there's no trailer, no poster, no anything for this Chaos Walking movie. And then we let you guys know that we found out before the announcement became official. We were the first ones to tell you guys, we have heard from the studio sources that it is being put on a long delay. And it is a long delay. From what we heard, the movie was an absolute mess. like an absolute mess that nobody was happy with. But Daisy Ridley's schedule made it impossible to do any reshoots on it or to fix anything. And so it is going to get a theatrical release. They spent way too much money on this not to give it a theatrical release. They will give it a theatrical release. And I believe they might have already said when that date will be. But it's not for a while. But yes, it will come. It will come. Just hang in there. All right. Thanks for writing that in, Anonymous. All right. Kenneth Colton writes, "Hey, Giovanni. Hey, Kenneth. I saw your post on Twitter encouraging us to donate to the Red Cross, and I am here to match my $10 Red Cross donation. Australia can use all of our help. Campea equals definition of class." Nah, I think everybody is asking people to give stuff to Australia. I think that's nothing special about me. But thank you, Kenneth. That's the special thing, that you donated to the cause there. So thank you, and you equal the definition of class, sir. You equal the definition of class. So thanks for doing that, my friend. All right. Nosferatu writes, "It's hard to explain puns to kleptomaniacs because they always take things, comma, literally." Actually, you know what? That one's not bad. That one's not bad because you got to think about it for a second. All right. Nightspeed writes, "I almost crashed. WTF. Scott is strange." Oh, hearing the news. I mean, let's not pretend like there was never a Doctor Strange until Scott Derrickson came along. Let's not pretend that. Look, I am bummed out that he's not directing it, but let's not pretend that another director couldn't come in and do just as good of a job, or at least close to as good of a job. Maybe it'll be a lot worse, but it could be just as good. Might even be better. Who knows? I am totally bummed out, but Scott departing does not end the film. Let's not go that far. Double X Your Disease writes, "How long do you think it will be until we get a 100% fully functional lightsaber in the real world? Not talking about half-baked Snyder Cut version." I don't know. I mean, honestly, it doesn't seem like the technology for that would really be all that far off. I mean, maybe not as powerful as a true lightsaber, but like some kind of plasma thing using laser technology that emits a limited range field. I gotta believe you know what? Honestly, I probably don't think we're even all that far away from it. I don't even think we're probably all that far away from it. We'll have to wait and see. Oh, I know I'm going to get one. I'll get one immediately. Justin T writes, "My 10 most anticipated films of 2020 are Dune, A Quiet Place 2, Tenet, The Personal History of David Copperfield, Onward, The Lovebirds, Wonder Woman 84, Mulan, The Eternals, and In the Heights." I'm looking forward to hearing your picks. I'm looking forward to putting my list together too. In the Heights is interesting because I want to be excited for that movie, and I'm just not. I don't know. The trailer for In the Heights didn't catch me. And I love Hamilton. I love Hamilton. I mean, I got to go see it at the Pantages. It was everything everybody raved that it was and more. I loved Hamilton. So I would figure I was really excited about seeing what Lin-Manuel was going to do with In the Heights. The trailer didn't get me. That doesn't mean the movie won't be awesome. There have been a lot of movies that I've loved that I didn't like the trailers at first. So who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But thanks for sharing your list, Justin, because you got a lot of really, really good ones on there. All right. Justin T also writes, "I just saw 1917 last night, and it is a visual and emotional, captivating masterpiece. The cinematography is everything in that movie. The cinematography is beautiful and at times horrifying, and I couldn't get over how they edited the film to make it all look like it was all shot in one day. My number one film of 2019. It's not my number one, but it is in my top 10. It is in my top 10. I was floored by it. And yeah, that whole technique of making it feel like the movie was all in one shot, except for in a couple of places, but the way they do that was really impressive. The feel of it, it just immersed you into the movie in such a beautiful way. It was an absolute triumph of a film. Couldn't agree with you more, Justin. I mean, again, not my number one film, but it is going to be my top 10. All right. Jose Miaz writes, "Which director replaced Scott for Doctor Strange 2? Who knows? Could be anybody. As long as it's a decent director, that's all I care about." And listen, Kevin Feige has put some really weird choices before and have them work out perfectly. So whoever he picks, I'm going to be on board with, just as long as they're a gifted director. Xander Dominic Toretto writes, "Hey, John, have you finished The Watchmen?" Oh, I did. Yeah, I finished it right away. "I'm curious to hear your opinion. I loved every episode. The acting was amazing. Damon Lindelof did an awesome job with his team of writers, with exceptional world building. Even the music by Trent Reznor was top notch. I loved the show. I did not love every episode. I would be dishonest if I said I loved every episode. I didn't. But overall, I thought the show was great. I also, I very much liked the finale, although the finale had some problems. I had some issues with the finale. I did. Even though when it's all said and done, I still quite enjoyed it, but I had a few issues with it. But I'll tell you what, we talked about it earlier in the show today, that nostalgia episode. Because I remember the week before, I watched the episode the week before, and then it ends with a quick peek at what next week's episode is. It's like, oh, so she takes these pills and the whole episode is going to be her reliving somebody else's memories? Boring. And then it turned out to be not just the best episode of the season, it was one of the best episodes of all of television for the entire year. It was remarkable. So yeah, at the end of the day, I was very happy with Watchmen. At the end of the day, I was very happy with Watchmen overall. I really was. Winso writes, not going to lie, that news gave me a panic attack. If we're talking about, Scott Derrickson not being on, listen, it worries me. Again, that doesn't suggest that I don't trust Kevin Feige and what he's going to be able to replace him with somebody else who's really good. I absolutely do. But I mean, Derrickson did such a great job on the first one. He clearly understood the character and how to communicate all the wildness of the character to the audience. It's concerning. All right, Mad 1306 writes, I was thinking about the Sony and Disney deal for Spider-Man. I remembered that Spider-Man gets to feet in an MCU movie before they go back to the table. You probably mean feature. Before they go back to the table. But which MCU movie? Shang-Chi, Doctor Strange 2, Thor 4? Don't know. I mean, I by the way, I don't think it's an automatic thing that he will. I don't know that it's an automatic thing that he absolutely will. And if he does, will it be before the two Spider-Man movies that they're still going to make? Or will it be in between the two Spider-Mans that they're going to make? Could it be after? Like, I think a lot of us, we hear that he could be popping up another movie, which assume will be one of the ones coming up really soon. And I don't know if that's the case. They're going to be shooting his new Spider-Man film pretty soon. It's coming up so soon that they had to delay their Uncharted movie that they were going to do with Tom Holland. So that went out the window. So I don't know if it's going to be any of the ones, if it does happen, which is kind of what they're saying it will. But if it does happen, I don't know that it'll necessarily be one of the ones that's coming at imminently. You know what I mean? So let's keep our eyes on that. All right. Thanks for sending that in, Mad. All right. Russell Amador writes, hey, John, I'm not going to lie. I'm a little nervous with Scott now stepping away from the project, but in Feige, I trust. I just hope they're able to find a replacement quickly because I had Doctor Strange as my most anticipated comic book movie for 2021. I have no doubt they will. I think by the end of March, we will know who the new director of Doctor Strange will be. Because while it is coming up, it's not like they have to make a decision today. So I think by the end of March, we will know. And I am completely with you on that, Russell. I'm nervous about the fact that Scott's not there. I wanted to see Scott direct this, but at the same time, Kevin Feige clearly knows how to attach the right directors to his movies. So I'm sure he's going to get a really good replacement who will work well. But still, I'm bummed out by it, man. I'm bummed out by it. Massive Jada writes, isn't it better now with cleared air? I'll say this. It's like I told Christian when Christian asked me if everything was good with me and Mark now. I said I wouldn't go that far, but it was positive. It was positive. And that's how everything's got to start. Everything's got to start with something positive. All right, 50 Shades of Geek writes, I just finished The Toys That Made Us, and I loved it. It's so good. I'm going to start watching The Movies That Made Us soon. Would you be interested in a similar series for TV shows or video games? I would. I'm a sucker for that type of content, period. Like just telling the stories of things I'm always interested in, especially if it's things that have had a place or a part in my life at some point. So that type of stuff, 50 Shades, always appeals to me. Always does. All right, 50 Shades also writes, a viewer mentioned Ed, and Eddie recently. It's a Canadian-produced animated show from 1999 to 2009. I was in Canada at that time, and I've never heard of it. From 1999 to 2009, it aired on the Cartoon Network, but it was never broadcast in Canada. Oh, maybe that's why I never heard of it. It was never. I'm like, wait a minute. I was in Canada during those days. How come I never? It was never broadcast in Canada, ironically. So I'm not surprised you never heard of it. Okay, yes, because somebody brought that up the other day. It's like Ed, and Eddie, and I'm like, I've never heard of it. So Canadian-made thing that never actually aired in Canada while I was in Canada. That does explain 50 Shades. Thanks for clarifying that. All right, Blake writes, the internet actually now says you're worth what? No. The internet now says you're worth 16 million, John. So he's really holding out. Yeah, that's why I'm sitting on this 10-year-old chair with no cushion and getting a sore ass every single day and $7 headphones. Anyway. I'm worth $16 million. Bye, suckers. So he's really holding out on you, Ann. Also, who is the best director working right now? Not all time right now. Thanks for all the hard. Steven Spielberg. He's the greatest. He's the greatest of all time. He's the best. He's the best in the world. Period. End of sentence. Do not pass go. I mean, of course, just like anything else when it comes to art, that's a subjective opinion. Obviously, that's my opinion. You may feel somebody else is, and that's fine. But to me, it's Steven Spielberg. Every time he makes something, it's completely special. Hell, he even can make Ready Player One. And he made Ready Player One awesome. I love that movie. So he can do anything. So to me, Steven Spielberg is still the guy. And that's what I say, because I'm worth $16 million, apparently. All right, the Sock writes, finally can say this now that I have expendable money. Episode 76 of My Hero Academia was fire. The last 5 minutes was the series, and Rohan shall answer. Tagata Miro was the example of what it means to be a true hero, even by Stain's standards. Well, again, all of that meant nothing to me. Blah, 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 because I don't understand. I don't know anything about My Hero Academia. But much like the Harley Quinn show, that is a show, Sock, that a bunch of people have been telling me I need to check out. My wife has been trying to get me to watch it. Anne watches My Hero Academia, and she really likes it. Rob watches it. So I've been having a lot of people telling me to watch it. So maybe I'm going to have to start watching that thing, man, because a lot of you guys seem to really like it. So I might have to get on that train myself here. Thanks for sharing your thoughts, dude. All right. Anthony Luculano writes, I thought I'd give Dredd a rewatch as I haven't seen it in about 3 years. Such a cool movie. Shame it didn't do better financially. Bad trailers, man. I thought that, listen, I remember because I had Carl Urban. You know, every year I do my Masters of the Web panel at Comic-Con. That year, Carl Urban was my guest on my Masters of the Web panel. And they were going to do the first public screening of Dredd at Comic-Con. So the way it was going to go was the night before my panel, we were doing the screening of Dredd at Comic-Con, and I was moderating the Q&A afterwards with the cast. And then I was going to do my panel the next day. And I was so worried because I did not think the trailers to that Dredd movie looked good. They just didn't look good. And I was so worried that we were going to do the screening of this movie and it was going to be awful. And then the next day I was going to have to do the Masters of the Web panel with Carl Urban and go, so you're in that movie, huh? And it was going to be weird and awkward. Thank God that I went in and watched Dredd and loved it. I mean, that movie is so good, but I'm not surprised. To this day, I'm not surprised that it didn't do really well financially. It was not marketed right. And yeah, but that movie is great. That whole movie's an adrenaline rush. I love that movie. All right, Sammy Alrari writes, hey, John, my hero, Return of the King, Titanic and Ben-Hur all have 110 Oscars. No, 11 Oscar wins, but you say Return of the King is the only one with the most achievement. No. I go back and watch every time I've ever said it. I always say, because I know there are 3 films that have won 11, I always say the same thing. No film in history has ever won more Oscars than Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. I've never said there's no other movies that have tied. Actually, I've talked about Titanic before and stuff like that, and that there are 3 films that have won 11 Oscars. But I'm always very, very specific in what I say when I say no film in history has ever won more Oscars than Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. And when I talk about, I never said Lord of the Rings, Return of the King, no other film has had more achievements. I've always said that Lord of the Rings, Return of the King is the single greatest cinematic achievement when you look in terms of all the combined arts that went into it. Lord of the Rings, Return of the King was nominated for 11 Academy Awards, and it swept. It won every single category it was nominated for. But that's not the basic principle of me saying it's the greatest cinematic achievement. I'm saying that we have never seen a movie that have brought together all the disciplinary arts in filmmaking, the cinematography, the makeup, the visual effects, the cinematography, the directing, the writing, the acting, the costuming, the lore. No movie has ever brought all of those disciplines together in such a complete package. That doesn't mean I think it's the greatest movie of all time, but I think when you look at all the different arts that go into making a film, it is the greatest achievement probably ever when it comes to that stuff. So let's be very, very clear. Don't misquote me, Sammy, because that is specifically what I've been saying before. But anyway, thank you. But you're absolutely right. There are 3 films who win 11 Academy Awards, and those are them. But I still... Everything else I said before, though, is completely true. All right. Jesse Lopez writes, 1 of 3. I know it seems that Warner Brothers is on the right track with their DC film properties, but it's unfortunate that they potentially lost a majority of their cast members, with Affleck being officially out, along with Ezra Miller. And they're still saying Ezra Miller's in. I don't believe it, but they're still officially still in. Ray Fisher and Henry Cavill's future being uncertain. What are you left with? Just Godot and Momoa. Also, with Matt Reeves' Batman being unlikely to connect to the DCEU, I don't think a Justice League sequel is happening anytime soon. No, I agree. We've been saying for a long time, I don't think there's going to be one anytime soon. Within the next 10 years, but like not in 2020, 2021, 2022. Like not anytime soon. I completely agree. But look, the reality is they tried something and it didn't work out the way they had hoped it would. And so what do you do when things aren't working out the way they should? Do you just keep doing it? Or do you change directions and change tactics? I agree. It's a bummer because you guys know how I feel about Ben Affleck's Batman. I think Ben Affleck is Batman. So I agree it is really unfortunate that we don't get a Ben Affleck Batman. I think it's really unfortunate that we're probably not going to get a Henry Cavill Superman again. He's my favorite Superman we've ever had. But that doesn't mean that new things can't be great. Hell, look at Shazam. I thought Shazam was fantastic. I'm not going to pull anything here. I thought Shazam was delightful and fun and funny and entertaining. And I just love that movie. So now we got Black Adam coming. And I trust they're probably going to do a pretty good job with that too. And so at some point you do got to move on. And it sucks to some degree, but we can be excited to see what's coming down the pipe. So let's keep our eyes on that. But I agree with you, man. It sucks. I hate the fact that we're not going to get a Ben Affleck as Batman anymore. I think it sucks that we're not going to get a Batman film directed by Ben Affleck. I think it sucks that we probably aren't going to see Henry Cavill as Superman anymore. All that is true. But it doesn't mean that we may not have even brighter things ahead. Maybe it'll suck. Maybe it'll be great. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah. Bottom line too is I agree. We're not going to be getting a new Justice League anytime soon. All right, just time for a few more here, guys. Jordan Ross writes, I am very interested to see what Anne Hathaway and Zemeckis do with the witches. I am very curious about that as well. Somebody else brought that up the other day too. Watch Death Becomes Her. Zemeckis is perfect for this. Zemeckis is just a hell of a director. He's such a wildly visual director as well. He's perfect for this. He'll bring the stage and campy. He's also a master at technical movies, A Christmas Carol and Back to the Future. Also, interesting to see Anne Hathaway get disgusting, scary, and ugly as the Grand High Witch. But you know they're going to make her real pretty at some point. You know that, right? Angelica Houston traumatized me as a child. Fun fact. Both Hathaway and Houston are Oscar winners and supporting actresses and have the same initials, A and H. I didn't even think about that. That is kind of cool. And you know what? Listen, I have been a fan of Anne Hathaway for a while. But I'll tell you what, when she did Les Mis and when she did The Dark Knight Rises, because I liked Anne Hathaway, but when they announced that she was going to be Catwoman in The Dark Knight Rises, I was a little pessimistic. Yeah, I was pessimistic about it. I'm like, really? I like Anne Hathaway. I don't see her as Catwoman. And she ended up being the best thing in that movie. She was so good as Selena Kyle. She was so good in that. And her thing in Les Mis won her an Academy Award. And then she was just in that Ocean's 11 spinoff film, which she stole the show. She stole the show in that. Anne Hathaway, I know I have no idea why there are people who don't like Anne Hathaway. I think she's amazing. She is one of the most talented actresses in the world. She's one of the most beautiful women in the world. She can sing, she can act, she can do comedy, she can do drama. I think she's terrific. So I don't get it. So yes, man, you pair her with somebody like a Zemeckis Jordan, and we could be in for something really special. All right, Jetfire97 writes, here's my pick for the Knives Out 2 cast. Kathy Bates, Ian McKellen, Willem Dafoe, Michelle Pfeiffer, Sam Rockwell, Gary Oldman, and Anthony Hopkins. Well, I mean, you just grabbed a list of really great actors and threw them together, but that is one of the very cool things that you can do with Knives Out, is the fact that every couple of years you can just kind of remember how Batman always used to change who Batman was. It's like, who's the new Batman? Every couple of years, it could be who's the new cast of Knives Out to go along with Daniel Craig's Inspector Blanc, right? Who are the characters? And you can do that every single year. And listen, I like your list. I'd sign up, but you just listed all just a great, incredible actors. So yeah, you got me, man. You totally got me, Jetfire. All right. Clay Woodley writes, John, you probably haven't heard, but Fast and Furious 9 is going to drop its full trailer on January 31st, 2 days before the Super Bowl. That's interesting because we were just talking about that. This movie comes out in May. So we're January, February, March, April, May. That movie comes out in 4 months, right? So I'm not surprised that we're going to be getting a trailer relatively soon, but I did not hear that was before the Super Bowl. That's interesting. That's interesting to know. So I'm guessing they're not going to spend now the extra $3 million or $5 million to also play it at the Super Bowl if they're dropping it before the Super Bowl. Then Clay Woodley also writes, I'm not a Patriots fan, but I have nothing but respect for Tom Brady. Do you think he will leave the Patriots? I do. Sadly and unfortunately, I do think Tom Brady is going to leave the Patriots. I think it's time. And look, he may end up still there. I personally think he's going to end up on the LA Rams. I personally think he's going to end up on the Los Angeles Rams. I don't know that for sure, obviously, but that's going to be my guess. That's my guess right now. All right, John D'Amato writes, I'm fine with Derrickson leaving Doctor Strange 2. Doctor Strange was the weakest Phase 3 movie. He was better in Infinity War and Thor Ragnarok. I don't know, man, because the only reason he's good in Infinity War is because of all that groundwork in the first movie. Like, everything he said and did in Infinity War had the emotional impact because we knew who this character was. So when he says certain things, like half the lines that he says in Infinity War don't have the impact that they have if it wasn't for all that stuff we got to see him do and as we got to know him in that movie. So, hey, it's all subjective. I respect your opinion, but I got to disagree with you. I thought that Doctor Strange movie was fantastic, and I don't think Doctor Strange is effective at all in Infinity War Endgame if it wasn't for that Doctor Strange movie. But you see it a different way, and your opinion is no more and no less valid than mine, so it's all good, man. It's all good. All right. The Sock writes, I told my boss, Mechagodzilla, and misheard me and said, did you say Naked Godzilla? Was he wearing clothes before? Now I want and will not be satisfied until I get Naked Godzilla. Well, the good news, Sock, Mechagodzilla. Did you say Naked Godzilla? I love it when people mishear me. The good news is you already got him. You've already got Naked Godzilla. Godzilla is naked in every single one of the movies that he's in. So there you go. I am still very curious, though, to find out if it is. I mean, we know that there was the toy leak, but toy leaks don't always mean that those things are going to be in the movies. I am very curious to see if we do get Mechagodzilla in there, because I think that'll be pretty insane if they do. All right. The Dark Magician Girl writes, who is your favorite Star Wars actor and Star Wars character? Also, did you know Rory McCann, the actor who played the Hound on Game of Thrones, was in Jumanji: The Next Level? Yeah, well, I didn't know until I saw the movie. Until I saw Jumanji, I didn't know he was in it. I also didn't know Awkwafina was in it till I saw the movie. So it was really cool seeing him in there. Favorite Star Wars actor is probably... I go back and forth on this. Maybe not the best actor in all of Star Wars. Certainly a very good actor. And probably my favorite. Probably Harrison Ford. So yeah, I'll go ahead. A favorite character, though, is always going to be Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker is and always will be my favorite character in Star Wars. So yeah, there's that. All right. Trey Brown writes, is Phasma's armor Beskar? Ooh, that's a great question. I've never thought of it. You know what? You could make a solid argument that maybe it is, because you see what her armor could resist that other regular Stormtrooper armor couldn't. I mean, that's a pretty expensive expensive set of armor, but maybe? You know what? No, it's not Beskar. Because there is a Phasma novel that's actually pretty good. The Phasma canon novel is actually pretty good. And I believe in that novel, they go into her making her armor, and I don't think it was Beskar. So no, but that's a great theory, though. Okay, last two questions, guys. Marie Seafring writes, "Hey John, I started streaming Pick of the Litter on Disney Plus and I love it. Thank you to the film fan who recommended it. Yeah, it's a story. I haven't watched it yet, but I told Anne about it and we're going to sit down and watch it together, about these 6 puppies who are born and their lifelong journey to become service dogs, which I think sounds amazing and adorable. And I'm a dog person, so I eat that stuff up, Marie. So I'm like, yay. And again, another great example of when you guys recommend things, it's not always on me, but thousands of other people hear your recommendations, they pick it up, just like Marie Seifring was able to enjoy Pick of the Litter because of the recommendation you made. So you're making other film and TV fans' lives better because you're recommending things that they can then go check out. So that's awesome. All right. Dan Ketchum writes, director says he's recasting the next Star Trek. Yeah, apparently it's going to kind of be a little bit of a standalone thing. He didn't give a lot of details on that, but it's not going to be a continuation of the Kelvin stuff that we've had. Then again, it may not be the traditional Star Trek either. It might be something completely different, so we'll have to wait and see. All right, last question of the day, guys, comes to us from Irrelevant, who writes in, speaking from strictly acting talent, who, for you, is the greatest actor with the worst success and worst actor with the greatest success? Oh, I don't know, man. That's something I would have to sit down and think about that for a while. One guy that does come to mind, though. That is an incredibly stupidly gifted actor, but has had a really hard time getting in the right movies. It's Taylor Kitsch. I think Taylor Kitsch is a fabulous performer, but unfortunately not had a lot of success with the particular movies they were in. And even when they're in some great movies, the movies for whatever reason don't do well. For example, John Carter, which should be called John Carter of Mars, but hey, they called it John Carter, so whatever. So yeah, that's now greatest actor or the worst actor with great success. I don't know. I'd have to think about that off the top of my head, but I'm sure everybody has their opinions about that too. All right, listen. We're all out of time for today, but Kian Shingler, Slim Trav, D308X, and everybody else all the way on, everybody else who sent in a question, do not worry, your questions are going to get answered either a little bit later today on a companion video. If I don't have time for that, then we'll get around to your questions first on the John Campea Show tomorrow, and we'll pick up on those, because there's not a whole ton of them left, so we'll either go do those in a companion video later, or they will be the first answers that we give on the John Campea Show on Monday. I said tomorrow. I should have said Monday. That will do it for me for now, guys. Thank you so much for being here and making this show a part of your day. Again, I encourage everybody, whether you sent in a question to the show today or not, go on over to redcross.org.au and make a contribution. Doesn't matter how small or how large. Go make a contribution to the relief efforts going on in Australia right now. It's a really important thing to do. Thank you to Robert Meyer Burnett for being here today. Thank you to all of you guys for making this show a part of your day. And a special thank you to all of you guys who sent in the questions, not just because you gave us great fun things to talk about, but also because you supported the channel along the way as you did it. And all of us here, thank you very, very much for that. Guys, have a tremendous weekend filled with awesome victory. May you come back on Monday fulfilled and refreshed and ready to go to face another week. That will do it for me for now, guys. Thanks so much for being here. My name is John Campea, and until next time, guys, bye-bye.